You remember the time we were getting your teeth fixed and we spent the money on Francis's toupee? I don't wear a hairpiece. I'm Liam, he's Rob, and for the first part of our revisit season, we will be looking back at 4 of the earliest movies that we covered on the Hey Guys podcast, starting with, rather unsurprisingly, a look back at the movie that gave this podcast its name, Richard Donner's 1985 classic, The Goonies. So, Rob, this was the first movie that we ever covered over 200 episodes ago. And the reason we covered this first, beyond the whole name thing, is that I think this might have been the most important, most influential movie of my youth. I mean, sure, I love Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Robocop, all that jazz. But everyone I knew had watched and loved the Goonies. And when you spent almost every day of your formative years out with friends riding BMXs, it's hard not to be massively impacted by a movie that so perfectly captured what it meant to be a kid in the 80s and 90s. And like going back, it truly is what makes the movie so special. Sure, it's set in a different country. Yes, there are murderers, a highly deformed man-child, and pirate treasure. But thanks to the way the kids are represented on screen, it's also incredibly relatable. And for that reason, looking back at it now as a 42-year-old, oddly nostalgic, not just for the movie, but a time in my life specifically. I feel like it's one of those things, like, I'm not sure if you would have had the same attachment to Friends, the TV show, but I feel like when we were younger, everybody kind of was attached to a Goonie. It was like, oh, who were you? Were you Mouth? Were you, Mikey? Were you Data, which was usually determined by one obvious thing. And like later on, it's like, oh, are you a Chandler? Are you a Ross? Are you a Joey kind of thing? It felt like one of those formative moments. And I think it still is for a lot of us.
The reason why I think we picked it is pretty much what you said. It's just growing up, it's just the Goonies. I love an adventure film anyway. So the fact that it was kids my age doing an adventure and like finding treasure and everything, it's so good when I was a kid to watch it. I just wanted to say one thing. You said the revisit season. We don't get enough Mary Ellen Trainor, do we? We got to revisit the films that she was in. Like we just had to bring her back in. Like she doesn't appear on this fucking podcast enough. Like Jesus.
I feel like
Christ.
every 4 weeks it's Mary Ellen Trainor again. But I was trying to figure out what it is about this film. I was like, I don't think it's just the fact that it was released at a certain time. And there is an argument to be made for this being the ultimate kids movie. The whole idea that it's been copied many times but never bettered. I think the only competition realistically are probably Stand By Me, E.T., and I think either of us, we both be coming from different sides of the fence here. I might make an argument for, say, the Sandlot Kids, and you might make an argument for Monster Squad, for instance.
Monster Squad. I thank you. Monster Squad is when you got those kids on an adventure or doing something. You would hint to those. Like, but the thing is, right? It's like Die Hard on a plane. Stand By Me is Goonies looking for something else. They're looking for the dead
They're
body.
looking for a dead, but it's just a slightly darker version of this.
Yeah, Monster Squad again. You can go a bit darker again. They're looking for Dracula or stuff, but it's still these plucky kids, and what makes it good as well. They're friends, but they're all completely different, like very different people. Like they all come from the Boondocks, as it were, or the Goondocks. Sorry, not the Boondocks, the Goondocks, but they're very different people, but they all gravitate towards this one guy who makes them get into trouble. The guy, if you looked at that group in a line, you wouldn't say Mikey was the instigator until he started speaking and everyone gravitates towards him. You would say Mouth is the instigator. I would honestly believe he's the troublemaker. But then you realize why everyone's following Mikey. He's just got this air about him for kids his age. Well,
he's got this.
His age.
It's like an earnest charm, isn't it?
His 16-year-old brother, he's following him every. No offense to Josh Brolin as Brand, he looks 45 of a day in this, right? But he's meant to be.
He absolutely does.
Yeah,
despite the fact that he is actually, I think he was 17 at the time.
Yeah,
I think he's younger than Andy, but yeah, he's just got one of those faces. He looks like 47 years old. It looks like they were just like, dude, we've got to try and make him look younger. It's like, all right, what we're going to do, we're going to put his shorts on the outside of his jogging bottoms, and we're going to give him a headband, which he's going to wear for the whole movie. It's just like, is that what kids wear? It's like, dude, look at him. He looks 57 years old. It's like, how old is he? 17. It's insane.
Didn't help as well that he was nearly the same height as Sloth. That's why they didn't stand them. That's why they didn't stand them next to each other. It's like you can't make Sloth this imposing guy when it looks like Brand could fuck him up. Like,
I think Sloth versus Brand would be a genuinely decent scrap. I do think it would be.
You're going to have it, aren't you? Because now the Goonies aren't going, and jumping straight to the end like we always do, the Goonies aren't going anywhere. And poor fucking Chunk's parents, they've just brought Chunk a pizza.
Oh
They've
my
just gone,
God.
why the fuck is Chunk protecting that random, like, odd looking man? Wait, what did he just say? He's moving in with us.
Odd looking man. I honestly think Chunk makes the biggest executive decision in movie history,
Yes.
as far as I'm concerned.
You're gonna live
You're
with me
going
now.
to live with me now. The dude, as I already mentioned, is a highly disabled, gigantic man child with, severe disabilities. And he doesn't even ask his parents. He's just like, oh, yeah, he's going to come live with us. I'd be like, whoa, 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 settle down there, Chunk. Like, it's Cartman levels of audacity as far as I'm concerned. The level of rope this little shit has been, I mean, and he does have the air of an entitled little shit throughout the whole film. Although I do love Chunk. I mean, that's part of the brilliance of this film is that they're all kind of dickheads, but the characters are all so likable. The performances are so likable that they get away with it. And again, to bring it back to one of the reasons this movie works is the fact that it does have an edge, this film. Mentioned Stand By Me is probably the only film I think which really runs this close. And it is a different movie in many respects, because that is much more of a movie you would watch as an adult, maybe, and kind of, the way it's even structured, the way it's set up is nostalgic. It's being voiced over by Geordie LaChance as a grown-up looking back at his youth. So nostalgia is kind of built in. And this movie is more clearly made specifically for kids. But like I said, it does have an edge, which 80s movies did, especially Amblin movies. Like, there's a bit of swearing, there's some genuine threat, there are a few drug and sex jokes. They put they put Chunk in the boot of a car with a dead body. And the kids actually feel like kids rather than a carefully selected group of like Disney Channel bozos. Or as we would have nowadays, let's be honest, it would be the collection, wouldn't it? And I'm all for representation, but not the way they do it, and they've done it in the last 5 years. They'd be like, oh, there's a gay kid, there's a disabled kid, there's a black kid. And it's just like, that's not what groups of kids look like. And we've mentioned it on the podcast before. Taika Waititi said it best. He goes, listen, kids don't hang around like that. There's no group of kids where they all have like one of each group. It's usually like, we can all make, people look back on this and go, oh, they make fun of the fat kid and there's the token Asian kid. But when you were younger, that's all you had. Most of your friends were the same, generally speaking. If you were black, most of your friends are black. If I was white, most of my friends are white. And you might have one token white or black or Asian friend. And the other thing is, and it's, I think, to the detriment of a lot of modern movies, especially kids' movies, is they try and sand off the sharp edges of childhood. Kids are fucking dicks. They're dicks. And that's what this film captures to a certain extent.
Well, not to a certain extent, to a massive extent. I mean, to go straight away to Mouth, who speaks fluent Spanish, so he uses that to just scare the shit out of Rosalita.
Oh, Rosalita,
like the drugs are in here.
MVP.
The sex dungeon is up there. All that shit is funny. Sure, Mikey, or to be fair, anybody, if they want something broke, just gives it the Chunk. Like,
Chunk actually plays, rewatching it this time, I was like, so much of the plot revolves around Chunk being clumsy.
Yeah.
So much of it revolves around that. It's unbelievable.
I want to see this map. I'm going to give Chunk the... I love it how he counted him down as well. He's like, oh, he's definitely going to drop this on one, and it just falls. We want to go back in the locked door. What do? Tell Chunk we got pictures of his mother, and he just falls. Like, they found the entrance to the cave because Chunk actually accidentally knocked the water bottle over. Like,
so many things happen because he fell over or he dropped something, basically.
So to mention Chunk, though, Chunk is locked out of Mikey and Bran's house. He can't get into the gate because they need, obviously, to set up that Rube Goldberg machine, which seems like a lot of effort to set up every time you want to let somebody in.
I was gonna ask that because, again, I had never thought about this before, but I thought the exact same term. I've got it written down. I was like, why does Mikey have a Rube Goldberg machine in the front of his house? Like, if it was Data's house, sure. Yeah. Why the fuck does Mikey have it in his front? And like you said, you would have to set it up each and every time you wanted to open the gate for someone. It's mental.
Like, is it the first time they've used it? Because Mikey and Mouth stare at that fucking bowling ball. Even Chunk from a distance stare at that bowling ball like it's the first time they've tried it. Because the question is, how does Mouth get in if he can't get through the gate? Mouth knocks the door, they let him in.
I mean, the thing is, I guess maybe he's a touch more athletic. He could jump over, but everyone else has got to jump over. Like, like what happens if like the postman shows up? It just, again, it's insane because, like you say, it's because it's the very nature of a Rube Goldberg machine is that once it's run its course, you have to reset it all back up. And that's exactly what the question is, why has Mikey got this in the front of his house anyway? It doesn't make any sense. And two, it's bananas because you would have to set it up each and every time you wanted to let anyone near the house. I'm amazed that I'd never thought. How many times have I seen this film and it just never felt weird to me? And this time, as soon as the bowling ball started going, I was like, wait, this is dumb as fuck. I mean, it's cool, but it's really dumb and doesn't make any sense.
You know what's weird to me? That thinking about, I've never thought about it before. Mama Fratelli had three husbands. She must have.
Yeah, she must have. Well, I think Man Fratelli might have been a bit of a goer, but
Yeah,
again,
because
that's one of the things about
because
this movie.
I mean, they are not related by any genes, are they? Let's be fair. Francis Pantaloni, Joey Pants, looks nothing like
Jake.
Robert DeVee as Jake.
No,
And
no,
then
he
you got
doesn't.
fucking Sloth just totally out of the blue. Like, I mean, he might have been a handsome man before they dropped him on his head like 1,500 times.
Which is again, you never thought about it when you watch this film growing up. It's like, oh, it's Sloth, like no big deal. It's just like a major part of the Goonies. But then you rewatch it, and again, I mentioned earlier about the fact that this film has an edge. One, the Fratellis are genuine assholes. Like when I was rewatching, I was like, if the bats hadn't come up through the cellar, would they have pureed Chunk's hand? Like it looks like they were going to do it.
It was close. If he needs sometimes when you close a fist, you've got to extend your hand to like
Mhm.
stretch it out. If he extended that hand, he's
The fingers are
losing a
gone.
fingertip. Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't fucking around. And obviously, these aren't just kind of like jokey villains. Like they are murderers. There are dead bodies in this film. They shoot at the kids on numerous occasions trying to kill. Sure, they're clumsy as fuck, but they are also murderers. And I think if you don't have Anne Ramsey, Robert Darby, and Joe Pantoliano, sorry,
Joey Pants.
Johnny Pants, let's just call him Joey Pants. I just don't think this is the same movie. Again, we talked about like, Rosalita being the secret MVP. She comes in, she comes off the bench for a few seconds. She's absolutely fantastic. Those three are an absolutely core part of why this movie works. Again, complete assholes, but not only that, super memorable and genuinely both threatening and oddly likable. Like their whole back and forth. And it's not just the fact that they murder people, they chain up one of the kids in the basement who's highly deformed, hiding him from the rest of the world. When you stop and think about it for more than a second, you're like, this is dark as fuck.
How are they getting him in there as well? Like they've had to get Slough from somewhere because that's not their hideout. They've just moved it because that's a summer restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
There's fucking Ben and Jerry's in the freezer or Haagen-Dazs or whatever it is. Like it's
Yeah.
full. So they've moved into that recently. So they've had to get Slough down there, chained it. So they've set that up as the Slough basement straight away.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm,
absolutely
mm-hmm.
ridiculous. So yeah, and you know, I didn't. Who did they kill?
I do, well, that's the thing. You get a lot of information in the intro, which really does set you up for the rest of the movie. Because in the start, like, this is an 80s kids movie. So what you get, the first thing you get is a fake suicide, a pretty convincing one. You get a
Yeah,
shootout with the cops, and then you get the great character intros, which I think is like an underrated part of this movie.
I had that written down. Sorry, mate, to interrupt.
No,
I
no, go
had
for
that
it.
written down. I love the introduction of the Goonies, except Mike and Brand,
Mhm.
through the car chase.
Yeah.
Everything happens through the car chase, and you've got to introduce it, and you get their personalities through it all, and then you get the sweet
Except
moment between Mikey
for
and Brand. Go on.
Yeah, because I think the movie knows, like Mikey and Brand and the core family, like this, he's still the star of the show.
Yeah.
Everything, like you said earlier, everything kind of revolves around Mikey and Brand and their house in particular, which will bring me to Mikey's dad in a bit because I've got some opinions on him. But they have this great intro, so straight away you get an idea of who these characters are, except for Steph. So I think we can all agree that Steph is arguably the weak link in this movie.
Yeah.
To
Why
the
is she
extent
bobbing
where
for crabs?
what? Who the fuck bobs for crabs? Is that a thing? Why is she just
No, no.
down at the pier on her own, bobbing for crabs? Do people bob for crabs with their face?
Dude, she pissed Richard Donner off, right? They were filming this entire thing. It had to have been. They're filming this entire thing, and they're going, "Oh, we're going to show Data's gadgets, but he's a bit clumsy. That's fine. We're going to show Chunk really clumsy. Manages to hit himself in the face with his own milkshake when he's squeezing it against the door. Mouth
Mhm.
being funny with paying attention to the TV, and the TV turns off. Oh, what shall I do? Well, you pissed me off when you came in this morning. So you know what you're going to do? You're going to find some crabs. Okay, how am I finding crabs? With your face.
With your
What?
face. Well, what else am I doing in the film? You're kind of going to have a relationship, kind of, with a kid who's quite a bit younger than you. Wait,
Yeah.
like a romantic relationship? It's not going to be clear. But what it is going to be is weird. It's going to be weird. We're not going to explain it. And that's really going to be your only character traits. Oh, thank you very much. Steph gets such short shrift. I keep calling her Steph. I mean, I'm giving her short shrift here. Martha Plimpton.
Yeah.
Her whole character is kind of strange, and there is nothing odder and less developed in this film than the whole thing with her and Mouth. It's yeah, it doesn't really go anywhere. They kind of hint at it even towards the end. At one point, I was like, "Are they gonna kiss?" It's so strange. And just to be clear, I don't actually mind that Andy and Mikey kiss. Some people maybe watching now might find it weird. I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's super charming. One probably helps that Andy was one of like my first ever crushes, alongside Cindy Crawford, Julia Roberts, and maybe Topanga from Boy Meets World. Maybe Miss Elizabeth from WWF as well. She was right up there. But yeah, Andy was one of my first crushes, and you got to remember this is being told from a boy's perspective, and there was nothing more amazing, I think, for like a young boy than you suddenly being kissed by the older, hotter girl. Like this is like fantasy stuff for boys. It's like you go on this amazing adventure, there's fucking pirate treasures, all this stuff, and you get to kiss the hot girl as well. And I think they genuinely treat it in a sweet way. The only thing which arguably isn't sweet from a romantic perspective in this film, beyond the whole Steph and Mouth thing, of course, is when Brand kisses Steph at the end of the film. It's like it's his first ever makeout session. He is going to town on her, and it just makes me uncomfortable.
He's doing that, Mike, because he needs to prove a point now, doesn't he? When she says, "Where do your braces go?" and he realizes Mikey kissed him. But fucking for a younger brother, that's fantastic. Like going for the rest of their relationship in high school, dude. I made out with your missus before you did. Like, I had the first kiss before you did. Like, absolutely fantastic. Going back to talking about the guy, who of the Goonies is the strongest in the entire cast? Who's the strongest?
Physically?
Physically strongest.
Out of what, the core four?
Out of all of them, out of anyone in this cast, who is the strongest?
Oh, it's got to be Shrek. Shrek. Jesus Christ, Sloth.
Well,
Sloth, sorry.
I would have thought, then I really thought about it. It's Data.
Why is it Data?
Because look how much he is carrying, right, in that trench coat.
It's a good point.
He's carrying battery packs for his torch. He is carrying endless amounts of string or rope for the pincers of peril. The oil, the liquid, like the fucking the volume he has to be carrying for the oil slick
shoes. Yeah.
The boxing glove with the massive spring.
That is one of the silliest things in the film.
It is the silliest thing. But this dude and it's all in a massive flashes trench coat. This dude, right? If he took all that off, it's like Goku taking off his weighted fucking clothes when he's fighting one of the Dragon Ball reference. Sorry,
I was going to say I do remember watching Dragon Ball Z, but I didn't get past season 1, and I can't remember weighted clothing or anything like that. But I'm going to take your word for it. But yeah, he does have like the boxing glove's ridiculous because when you do suddenly have a scene with the boxing glove, you can see it so clearly.
Yes.
It's and beyond there are two really genuinely weak things in this movie, or weak scenes. I don't like the stuff. I like the stuff with Data on paper, but I think they go too far with it. And I've mentioned it on numerous podcasts. As soon as you start adding sound effects for comedy, you're kind of losing me. And for the most part, consider it's a movie about like finding treasure. It's relatively grounded. And I think part of that is the simple fact that they had to build sets. You couldn't have CG. So, you're kind of limited by the scale of the production and whatnot, which I think actually gives this film a huge amount of charm.
I think that's where we're going to differ when we go making a change because, spoiler alert, I think they needed more. Perhaps more.
Don't get me wrong. I agree with you to a certain extent. I mean, maybe the movie needed one more kind of big action set piece. Spoiler alert, maybe with a giant octopus. Who knows? But I think by having to make the sets, it kind of reins it in somewhat. It makes it a touch more relatable. But what it does mean is that everything feels quite grounded, except for when Data's involved, and then suddenly you get the sound effects with the boxing glove, the pincers of peril. And I mean, the sequence where he falls down the hole, like, make no mistake, these aren't a collection of geniuses, these kids. They make it through to the end in the pirate ship, largely by luck. They seem to just fall over a lot, through things, down things, and just seem to end up where they need to be. The only one which is truly outrageous is when Data falls down the hole. He uses his pincers of peril to stop himself falling onto the spikes, and you're just like, wow, he should so be dead. And then the rest of the kids just managed to crawl, like that rope appears as if from nowhere, and they all crawl down that massive hole. Like, that is a big deal for a bunch of kids, but they just sweep that under the rug and don't show it, and they're just like, oh, I've just found another room, everything is fine.
Was my question. Like, is that the way to Willie's treasure? Is that actually the way?
Or do they fall down that hole?
Yeah, they fall down that hole, and he falls down the hole, then they've all got to get down there magically. avoid the spikes, and then go through the other opening. Is that the way? Did Willie
There's
devise
no
that as
way.
his way?
No,
Or
because let's be clear, Willie wasn't fucking about. So Willie's on this ship, and if you look at his, like, not only has he pulled boulders up from the ground, there's a giant skull carved into the side of the rock, which he
yeah,
must have done. He's created an elaborate skeleton-based piano with a system where the floor falls away in sections. This is all just one pirate doing all
let's
this.
not just forget that he's got to tune each bone in,
Yeah, yeah,
apparently,
yeah.
to make the perfect pitch.
We all know One Eye Willie had an ear. He just had an ear, like he just knew pitch.
Well,
But
he
anyway,
needed an
there's
ear. He
no
didn't have an
way.
eye.
I just love the idea, to your point, that they've just kind of missed out half the adventure, and that like the rest of the tunnel is like a bunch of booby traps. And One Eye Willie's like, but they didn't even. They survived the. Oh, they just used the shortcut. This is ridiculous. Although, let's be honest, whether by hook or by crook, by accident or by means, they did a lot better than supposed specialist. Was it Chester Copperpot?
It's the copper pot, yeah.
Like he
Who got hit? Who got hit by the first brick?
the first thing. They keep going about him being like a specialist. He got hit by the first thing when he walked in through the door. It's like, Jesus Christ, I don't think this guy was a specialist at all. And there's one actually interesting thing, and I think this is just one of those, they had something to hand. But when they're looking through his wallet, so the idea is he's supposed to have done this in 1930s, yeah? And to show his age, they show a Lou Gehrig baseball card, which makes sense on paper because Lou Gehrig famously played a lot of his career in the 1930s for the Yankees. But the card that they use was actually printed in the 70s. So I've seen people online suggest that, oh no, this is somebody else who found his wallet, then went in after him. So it's not Chester Copperpot, it's just somebody with Chester Copperpot's stuff. So that's why they're so useless and got killed by the first thing. But that doesn't explain where Chester Copperpot
where's
is.
Copperpot then?
Yeah, well, I think it is very much Chester Copperpot. I just think it just so happens that they were like, we don't have the original 1937 Luke Gehrig baseball card on us, so we're going to use the 70s print instead. I think it's just one of those things. And there aren't too many of these things in this film. This is jumping towards the end. The scrappiest bit of the film, which is on the pirate ship. Mama Fratelli, she gets thrown into the water, and then when they cut back to the ship, she's back on the diving board with her two kids, and you're just like, wait, didn't she just get thrown in the water? I checked up on the wiki, and they just say she casually, after getting thrown into the water, she climbed back up the giant fucking pirate ship at her age, and then just went and looked for more treasure. What the fuck?
Look at the arms on that woman. She would probably been able to lift the ship if she could. So yeah, I'll give her climbing up.
You're a better man than I was just like, there's no fucking way she's climbing up that pirate ship, dude.
The Lou Gehrig baseball card, I don't mind that. That's fine. The most egregious thing for me is, why is Mrs. Walsh, Mary Ellen Trainor again? Why is she in a cast?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, like I don't know. Did she break her hand in real life? And like, I just don't understand why she's in a cast. Like, what storyline has been cut out of that? Like, is she in an abusive relationship with Mr. Walsh? Is he just is it her stress?
He doesn't look the type.
I don't know. I mean, it's always that thing in it. Oh, you never would have thought he was such a lovely neighbor. You never would have thought he'd have bodies buried in his basement. I'm just thinking the stress of losing the Goondocks makes him, I don't know, lash out on his wife.
Well, this is right. We'll deal with this now. Mr. Mikey, whatever his name is. So, I think most people agree, the economics of this movie are mental. Absolutely mental. I like the idea that the kind of finances behind the movie give the adventure meaning beyond just finding treasure. And I do actually quite like that the kids love the Goondocks. Like, usually when you have a movie like this, you have these kids living in a place which looks lovely and that all they want to do is leave. This is like the opposite. They're all like, we love it here, we want to stay, which I find quite charming. So at its core, it's a critique on Reaganomics of the time and income equality and all that jazz. Fair enough. However, as soon as you stop and think about it, things get weird. So Troy's dad shows up and he's knocking down 50 other houses. He's working on behalf of the country club, yeah? So they're knocking down right. And Mikey's dad they don't want to move, so they can't afford to pay out the rest of their mortgage. So Troy and the country club, whatever, are looking to buy out the rest of their mortgage so they can knock the house down. There is no fucking way in a million years there are 50 other houses all in the same situation. So most of the houses have agreed to sell to the country club. He's the
Yeah.
one person holding this up. So loads of people, and this is like the last day. So most people, like, their houses will be empty. They're moving the fuck out. They're like, man, the country club sure just give us a decent deal on our house. We can move to San Francisco now. We can head up to Seattle, whatever. I mean, I love a story in the Goondocks, but they've obviously got their eyes on bigger and better things. They've made their deal. You got this one fucker holding everything up. And if you have any doubt as to that, at the end of the film, when Rosalita finds the jewels in the bag, you think those jewels, which he's very presumptuous about, like, oh, these jewels are 100% real, are going to pay off the rest of my mortgage. There's no way in a million years, regardless of how much they're worth, that they're paying off for the remaining 50 houses. But as soon as he sees those and assumes they can pay off his house, he's like, there's going to be no deal for anyone. He rips up the contract. Everyone, he comes back into town and was like, dude, I'm my stuff, it's already in the moving van. I'm moving to Seattle tomorrow. It's like, not anymore, you know. The deal is off. The country club have reneged because they can't knock down my house. He's fucked over 49 other households just for the kids.
I agree with most of that, but I don't think it's 49 because Data lives next door.
Yeah, no. That's why I said 49. Because he actually says we've got 50, but Data is like, and again, we're looking at it from a kid's perspective. Yeah. So the kids don't want to move, but I bet you the parents do. The parents have made a deal. Like, there's all right. Maybe Data's one of the few people.
Are they all like around the corner from each other? Do they all live like?
I got the impression, and again, like, you know, Matt's dad was working on the kitchen. He wasn't working on the flat like he was moving out tomorrow. So I think they lived further away. I think they were okay.
I'm with. I thought the same thing, right? I've always thought that's Mouth's flat. Mm-hmm. But just before it shows the flat, it shows the plumbing van outside. And then you go in.
Got you.
So it's working from that. So he's gone to work with his dad.
Yeah,
and just borrowed the customer's TV to watch. Like,
yeah, okay, it's like take your kid to work day, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think Mikey's dad is maybe making very big decisions on behalf of a lot of people who live in the Goondocks.
What's he doing with the museum? So is he just losing his job then there as well? Or are they leaving Astoria? Or can they just move down the road to, like, I don't know, something that's not the Goondocks?
Well, I guess the idea is, like, if everyone has to move, it's like they're all just not going to find houses around the corner. So some people are like, oh, well, I'm going to have to find new work or whatever. You know, we're not getting the full economic picture of all this. But I'm just saying, from what I'm seeing, I'm thinking Mikey's dad is just looking out for himself. I think he's fucked over, regardless of whether he's coming from a good place. Like I said, that late in the deal, a lot of people are on their way out the door, and he is fucking that up for a lot of people. And the presumptuous, like, he's looked at those jewels, those fake ass looking jewels, and just being like, yeah, that'll cover the house for sure. Really? And the only reason he was able to rip up the contract was because no man has ever taken longer to sign a document in human history. In human fucking history. Yeah, if he signed like a normal thing, he would have already signed. But he keeps looking, keeps going to sign. You got Rosalita freaking the fuck out. No signing me, no pen. And it's just like, we know exactly what you're getting at. How about dad? Don't sign the fucking papers.
Yeah, I mean, she's shouting. It could have taken her less time to walk up and just remove the pen.
Yeah.
Do you know the dad?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he hasn't done much in the way of films or anything, or guest stars on TV shows. But he was a writer. No, he didn't write much. He wrote.
You're not going to tell me he's Stephen King, are you? Because he looks a little bit like Stephen King.
No. A couple of TV shows, but he wrote a film, and this film went on and had a TV show and 3 sequels.
God damn.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you guess the film? It was released in 1993.
So he had a movie in 1993.
He wrote this movie, and then it then had a like I said, 3 sequels and a TV show based upon it.
I think this might be a bit too. I think 93 might be too. It wouldn't be like Look Who's Talking or something like that, would it?
No, I'll give you a hint, and this might not be a hint because it's fucking random that he's in it. One of the people that star in it is Michael Madsen.
Michael Madsen, Reservoir Dogs.
Exactly. That's where you think you're going, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Free Willy.
Fuck, I totally forgot Michael Madsen was in Free Willy. That's the thing. That was supposed to be talking about him, but now I'm just surprised that I totally forgot that Michael Madsen was in Free Willy.
When I first remember watching Free Willy, I see Michael Madsen. I've already seen him murder a lot of people in other things before.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, fuck me, is he going to kill this kid? Oh, no, wait, actually, he's a nice guy in this. Hang on, no, that doesn't compute.
It really doesn't. He doesn't give off nice guy energy at all. At all.
Not at all.
Not a film I ever had any attachment to, bizarrely. You'd feel like we'd be of the right age But for some odd reason, Free Willy, I was just like, I always thought it was kind of lame and just never got it. I watched it once. I was just like, ah, it's not for me. It's not for me.
So because I remember watching three in the cinema, not one, but
Mhm.
three, and I think it was three. But it was about
Wait,
whalers.
you watched Free Willy 3 in the cinema,
Yeah.
and you said you're not into Free Willy. Like that's a weird statement. It's just a
No,
weird
fuck off now, because
sentence.
it was 1997, so I was only like 13, so I was taken to the cinema at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
but like I don't know many people who aren't into Free Willy but watch Free Willy 3 at the cinema. Like
I was offered
it's
to
fine,
go.
it's
I
fine.
was fine. I was
Yeah,
taken
no
by
worries.
family friends. It was
Oh
fine.
yeah, it's happened to all of us. I mean, I
But
watched Mortal Kombat Annihilation 2, Mortal Kombat 2 Annihilation twice at the cinema, and it's one of the
yeah.
worst films I've ever fucking seen.
But it was about whalers, and the main whaler again is a guy that you think is going to kill the world. It's Patrick Kilpatrick. Now, if that name doesn't mean anything to you, it's the Sandman from that Jean-Claude Van Damme film where it's about about organs in the what the fuck was that called? You know the one I'm on about, don't you? Where Van Damme plays a cop who goes undercover in a prison, and
Not Lockup, the Lionheart, which I know the one you mean. I can see the
yeah,
poster. I just
Death
can't think of the
Warrant,
fucking name.
Death
Death
Warrant,
Warrant. Thank you.
yeah, and it's and he plays the Sandman, the guy who
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, the main guy. We gotta do Death Warrant as it goes.
Do we really? I
Yeah,
feel like there are others, although we've done quite a few Jean-Claude Van Damme films at this point. Like we've done Universal Soldier, Bloodsport,
Kickboxer.
Kickboxer. What was the other one we did? The one set in New Orleans. The
Oh,
fucking
Hard Target, and Street Fighter.
Hard Target was
I
dope.
mean, to be fair, we still
Hard
got like
Target was dope.
we
That
still
film's
got time.
it's so
We
dumb.
we still got. Hey, that's our best fucking episode on YouTube.
Yeah, well, people love Hard Target. I mean, any movie where Jean-Claude Van Damme punches out a snake, I mean, how can you not be on board with it?
Oh, we're
But
still doing it, mate. I'm sorry, we're still doing Death Warrant at some point.
yeah, we probably will. To bring it back to the Goonies, it is a film like I mentioned earlier with Brand and his fashion, where he's wearing shorts on the outside and he's got the headbands. But two of the characters who caught my attention going back and rewatching this time. Mouse, like he just looks so wonderfully 80s when he shows up and he's got the grey coat on. He's got a
Yeah,
purple rain t-shirt and he's holding a can of classic Pepsi. I'm like, that is just 80s as fuck.
and constantly doing his hair at the beginning as
Yeah, yeah,
well.
yeah.
Just yeah,
But the
combing his hair.
real surprise is the fucking is Sloth. Sloth is wearing a really dope Los Angeles. It would have been Los Angeles Raiders at the time. Los Angeles Raiders t-shirt, which he tears off to reveal a Superman t-shirt underneath. I'm like, God damn, man! Sloth's dressed like me. This is
For,
insane. NFL
for,
t-shirts and Superman t-shirts. That's like my fucking thing, dude.
I mean, to be fair as well, looking at you now with those suspenders on, it's absolutely fantastic.
Again though, suspenders, it feels quite hipstery, doesn't it, nowadays? I can imagine someone wearing fucking suspenders and a Raiders t-shirt or a Superman t-shirt. I'm like, fucking Sloth's dressed pretty well. Although the whole Sloth thing, we already mentioned, it's weird that he's just in the film. We accept that. Again, considering it's the name of our podcast, Hey You Guys, I'd never really stopped and thought about why does he randomly shout, Hey You Guys? It's weird. Like I don't know where it comes from. They set up earlier the whole pirate thing. It's like, yeah, there's some foreshadowing there. But then he shouts, Hey you guys. So he has a catchphrase, and everyone's just like, yeah, there's Sloth and his catchphrase. I'm like, where the fuck did Hey you guys come from? It works, but I don't understand where it
It's
comes
just
from.
to get the attention. I didn't know whether he was doing it because like he wanted to put words to what the pirate does when he slides down the thing when he goes, ah. I'm
Oh,
not going to
maybe he's
scream it
just
out
going
loud.
for his thing.
Yeah. So he
But
just
that's
does
the
it.
thing.
Oh,
It's weird because the whole Chunk thing. So towards the end of the film, you have Captain Chunk and Sloth and stuff, and it's only at that point you realize a lot of this movie, and we mentioned earlier that the plot revolves around Chunk being clumsy. But other than Mikey, when you go back and watch it, a lot of just the movie revolves around Chunk. He is without question the second lead in this movie. Like
oh,
he has a
he's
whole
the
side
MVP.
story with the Fratellis, and then he has the whole extra thing with Chunk, with Sloth at the end, and the Captain Chunk thing is already mentioned. Like Chunk has loads to do in this movie.
Chunk is the MVP. He saves them at the end. Like
Yeah,
they don't believe him or anything, but he's the reason they get out because without him, you get no Sloth, so you get no going out.
yeah.
And you've got to feel. I mean, you have to give him MVP status because unfortunately now he's taken this random guy he's known for 3 hours home,
Mhm.
and the poor bastard is going to end up getting fucked. Like Sloth is just at some point
Oh
just gonna.
no!
I'm sorry, dude. I can't.
Don't
Like,
turn this into something horrible. This is such a sweet-natured movie. Don't tell
no.
me you're thinking about Sloth fucking Chunk. That's horrendous, dude.
I'm sorry, but like, look at that. Like, the father's got to be thinking, he's thinking, why are we fucking moving this dude in? This Jimmy Savile-esque guy. Why is he come into the house?
I don't agree with the Jimmy Savile thing. I'm trying to go on this horrendous journey with you, and the closest analogous kind of, I guess, experience you could get is when people used to take home chimpanzees. So when they're like younger and they could dress them up and stuff like that, and they'd be like, oh, chimpanzees are pretty well behaved. But then they reach their teenage years, and what they really get is horny and angry, and then they just can't be controlled and tear the motherfucker up. You're gonna get that with Sloth. So he's gonna go back and he's all charming, he's got the smile and his little ears are wiggling and stuff. And then one day, he's not seen another woman, but maybe his whole life, he's gonna get the horn and poor Chunk's gonna be on the receiving end. And good God,
Why?
man,
Why is he
this has gone
chained
in a
up?
dark way.
He is not chained up because he's ugly or so. Like he will follow his parents. Not his parents. He'll follow Mama Fratelli as
Mm-hmm.
much because at that moment he doesn't know anything different. Chunk is the one who leads him down the right path, as it were. So he's chained up for a reason, and he's chained up because he's fucking Lenny from Mice and Men.
Oh dear, yeah, it is a little bit Lenny-esque, isn't it? It's quite depressing. But anyway, as depressing as all that is, to bring it back to Chunk, what I
No,
love is that he's the
no.
character who, like, everyone had that one friend who just lied all the time. And it's a great plot device in this because he's the one person who's in a position to save the day numerous times, but nobody believes him. The kids don't believe him. The police don't believe him. And of course, there's a, fable with the whole crying wolf and stuff. But we all had that. Like, I literally had a friend who lied straight face when we were younger, who told us that he was friends with Michael Jackson. Look, this was back before, and again, we're going down this dark route again, before Michael Jackson maybe or maybe didn't start fucking kids. But at that point, when we were like 9, 10 years old, like the idea of being best friends with Michael Jackson was the coolest thing in the fucking world. And I had a friend who did that. And this went like right through even, I remember when I was in university, and I may have told the story before, and I do apologize. He told this lie where he's like, I'm good at golf. I play off like 10. And we're like, shit. The thing is, we were on our way to play golf. So we had to back this up 20 minutes later. And of course, he's never played golf in his life. And we're just like, this motherfucker was telling us he played off like 10 a minute ago. Playing off 10 like good. And he just can't get a golf ball. I'm like, dude, why would you lie when you know you've got to back it up? It's crazy.
Do I know this friend?
No, you don't. No, you don't. So I
Okay.
haven't,
I'm just trying to go through my mind then, thinking, do I
Someone
know
else
this
did.
guy?
A rapper did it recently. Who's is it Drake? Yeah, Drake. Drake was he was throwing out the first pitch at a baseball game, and someone was interviewing him. He's like, "Oh yeah, I used to play ball in high school, and I used to have a really good arm." Knowing full well he had to go out and throw the first pitch. He threw the first pitch like he was throwing with his wrong arm. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? You clearly can't throw a baseball for shit. Why would you lie and then go out there like 20 minutes before you're going out and throwing out the first pitch at an MLB game? Absolutely insane. Some people just can't fucking help themselves.
Bring it back to the film a little bit because we
Mhm.
keep going on tangents because of course we do.
Of course.
When they start fucking with the pipe, then
Yeah.
again, right? What plumber is putting those pipes in and not noticing
Yeah.
the secret entrance because it was there. I mean, it only took a little bit of water to make the hole bigger, but it was clearly there. But anyway,
Mhm.
when the shower, and I still don't understand how moving some pipes did that much damage. It moved the water fountain up and down. It
Mhm.
caused the shower knobs to pull in, and
Mhm.
it caused Troy to get again fucked in the ass by water. But anyway, the guys in the shower, I
Yeah.
never noticed that one of them has an eye patch. Just
Yeah.
randomly, one of them's a pirate.
Do you know what the really weird thing about that is? I looked up the old dude with the eye patch. Like, why the hell has that guy got an eye patch? That is Newt Arnold. Do you know who Newt Arnold is?
I
He's the
don't know.
director of Bloodsport.
Fuck off.
Dude, the director of Bloodsport with an eye patch was just in the shower in the Goonies. I was just like, because I looked at it, I was just like, why is that guy got an eye patch? Like, is that not to the fact that this is a movie about pirates? This is so strange. And then I looked it up and I was just like, Newt Arnold. I was like, Newt Arnold, that name fucking rings a bell. I was like, yeah, because we've done the Bloodsport podcast and talked about Newt goddamn Arnold. It's
Does he have?
bananas.
Does he have a an eye patch in real life?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he is a pirate in real life.
Yeah, yeah, he's a pirate in real life. And which is bizarre
Okay.
that we've gone all this way into this podcast and not mentioned pirates, or for that matter, the director, and it is one of those movies. We've had a few of them in the past where the movie has been stolen. So the obvious ones that jump out to me are True Romance. So it's a Tony Scott directed film, but everyone just associates it with Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
A movie we've done this podcast, Poltergeist, where Spielberg just again stole the movie. And the greatest of all is still to this day The Nightmare Before Christmas. So Henry Selick directed it, but nobody knows Henry Selick directed Nightmare Before Christmas because everyone just assumes Tim Burton did it. This is one of the lower key ones. But it is a high profile one because I still think when people think of the Goonies, they think of Steven Spielberg because it says Steven Spielberg presents Goonies. Yeah. And they think of it as being a classic Amblin film. This film's directed by Richard Donner. And Richard Donner had one of the great heaters in directing history. So if you go from 76, this is a burner, man. 76, he does The Omen. 78, he does Superman. 80, he does Superman 2 and Inside Moves. 80, he does Lady Hawk, a film we have to do on this podcast. Yep. 85, he does Goonies. And he does Goonies Are Good Enough by Cyndi Lauper, which is a fucking... I can't believe we haven't talked about that music video.
Cyndi Lauper and Wrestlers, by the way.
And Wrestlers and the Goonies, because why not? He does Lethal Weapon in 87, Scrooged, one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time in 88, Lethal Weapon 2 in 89, Radio Flyer, a film I know you're a big fan of, and Lethal Weapon 3, both in 92. So from like 76 until 92, over 15 years, he is just absolutely slaying it. And The Goonies is maybe his most famous film, and most people just still associate it with Steven Spielberg. Well, I don't know. Is it this or is it Superman? Or to some people, it might be The Omen. I mean, well, that's the whole point of him being on a burner. He made a lot of very famous films, but that's a good question, actually. When you think of Richard Donner, what's the film that jumps to mind? Is it The Goonies? Is it Scrooge? Lethal Weapon? I think it's Lethal Weapon for me.
Yeah. When I think of Richard Donner, I always think of Lethal Weapon.
It's weird because Superman and Superman 2 are super famous, but when I think Richard Donner, it's not just Lethal Weapon, but the poster of the first movie in particular just jumps to mind. It's just one of those things. But amazing achievement all the same.
He was also in love with Mary Ellen Trainor because fucking hell, she was in most of his films. She's in Goonies, all the Lethal Weapons, fucking Scrooged, you know.
So awesome.
We've already mentioned her on this podcast again. She was in Monster Squad as well. And another mum of the gang. It's absolutely insane.
Another thing he was in love with, and one of the things this movie's in love with is, and it makes me a little bit upset, are BMXs. Like that is a core part of this film, are BMXs. Like the idea, I mentioned in the intro, the idea of going out on your BMX. When I was younger, that was like our ticket to freedom. Like all of a sudden one day, like you could go, a block or two over, and then one day you were given that free pass. There was no limit. There was just be home by time when it gets dark. And we talked about this on like the big podcast where we're just like, if as long as you could get back by the time it was dark, you could go as far as you wanted. It was like the whole, the Gattaca scene when he has to swim out, but the whole idea is you have to swim out as far as you can with the knowledge you need to save enough in the tank that you can swim back to shore. It was kind of like that, but much more low key. It's like you could go as far as you wanted, but you knew in the back of your head, it's like, I have to leave enough time to get home before it gets dark. Otherwise, my mum's whipping my ass. So there was always that risk reward thing. But the BMX was the definition for us growing up of freedom, because all of a sudden you're just like, fuck, I can go as far as this fucking bike will take me. And it's like, when was the last time you saw a BMX on the street? Like, do kids not go on bikes anymore?
You see a lot of them now, but not really on the street. I see a lot of them in the skate parks, like round by us. No, it's not the same. But you're asking me if I've seen one. I have seen one out in the wild.
Yeah, sorry, I did ask you in the literal. But you know what I mean, more in terms of just kids cutting about on their bike. Like when I think of a skate park, that's more of a specific, I'm going there, I'm doing tricks and stuff. There was none of that like with BMXs, we're learning tricks. It was just a mode of transportation to get us further away from our houses.
I never had a BMX. I always had a mountain bike.
Oh, so I started with a BMX, but then suddenly like they fell out of fashion and mountain bikes were suddenly the big thing. The more gears you had, the cooler you were. I remember that being a thing.
Riding a BMX as a child makes me think of the teens in commas, but the fucking adults riding the BMXs in ET. Like that.
That seems great.
Like you're way too big for the BMX.
I was a very normal sized child. I even when I left high school, I was only like 5'10". Wasn't until I got older that I suddenly shot up in height into the magnificent beast you see
When I
today. But
left
that's
high school, what
besides the
fucking
point.
growth spurt are you having at 16 or 17?
Dude, it was crazy. Like literally, I left high school. I was like 5'10", 5'11", and by the time I got to college, I was like 6'5". It was just a crazy summer when I grew like 7 inches.
By the time I got to college, I was taller than you, Rob, as an adult. Yeah, fucking yeah, I'm 6'4".
Yeah,
Like, hey,
absolutely bonkers.
yeah, another why moment in this film.
Mhm.
Why is Jake singing opera? Like, what
I
is that
love
about
the
his
fact that he
character?
does.
Yeah,
He's
but
just got a
why?
great singing voice. I literally think the answer to that question is Robert Davey can sing. And he just was just like, I just want to sing in this film because it's not just, oh, I'm going to sing. This is going to be a little kind of like twist on my character. He clearly has a bit of talent. And they're just like,
Yep.
yeah, I'm just going to sing in this film. But I don't know. It adds an extra layer to the character. And as you mentioned earlier, like the secret MVPs with Anne Ramsey, Robert Darby, and Joey Pants, it's like they all bring something. Like the whole ongoing joke about Joey Pants's hairpiece. It's needless, but it's fun and just adds an extra layer. It's a great way of giving people character without doing a
I
backstory or
love
going overboard. It just adds a little bit of spice to things. That's all.
I love Joey Pants as well because you've got like Jake calling it a toupee or a wig or
Mhm.
everything, but every time Joey Pants is like, I don't wear a hairpiece. Like he won't even call it a toupee or something. It's like these people now that get plugs in or something. They've
Mhm.
invested in a hair system. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just like just putting slapping a wig on like Goodfellas style where that fucking guy
Yeah,
sold the
yeah.
wigs. It is literally I have a hair system.
Well, it's just it's a man thing. Just people won't. They just don't want to admit it. They always want to hide it. It's like what's his name? Oh my God, the Formula One driver, Lewis Hamilton. Like to this day, he keeps saying he hasn't had a hair transplant. I'm like, why, dude? Like, who gives a fuck? Like, dude, you clearly had a hair transplant, and it's a really good one. Like, who gives a shit? But yeah, so like that's the whole. He lies about it, even if it's falling off its head. It's ridiculous.
You get the other side of that, don't you? Because and I'm bringing this up because I just recently watched the Royal Rumble for
Mhm.
2025. John Cena's bald spot is
Awesome. I love the fact that he's just owning it.
magnificent. He just doesn't, yeah, he's just owning it. Like it's just fucking.
Well, he must
But I
know.
still love the fact he does know because people have pointed out he's on social media. People have pointed out to him. But the fact that he's got like just those random couple of hairs, he's thinking he's trying to cover it. I mean, it's not like Hulk Hogan egregious, but it's
Well, the
gonna
thing
get
is,
there, I
though,
think.
Hulk Hogan just owned it magnificently, and I think
He
John
didn't own it
Cena,
magnificently. He kept a bandana on as best as he could for like whilst he
yeah,
was rocking the skullet.
but he always had that weird thing. It was like his thing. Like
Oh, don't
he
stick
was
up for Hulk
bald in
Hogan. He's
such
a
an
prick.
he's a prick, but he was so iconic. But anyway, it's besides the point. But I think the only problem with John Cena is like, yeah, he's getting on a bit. He's lost a bit of hair at the back, no big deal. I think Sting did as well. The problem is with John Cena and the reason I think it's more noticeable than it should be is because his ring persona, he's still dressed like a teenager.
Yeah.
Suddenly, like he does look like a grown ass man now, and he's still got the
Hang
jeans
on.
and
Why? No, no, no. I can't stick up for him. No, I'm sticking up for him. I can't say, oh yeah, he dresses like a teenager and laugh at him. Dude, that's how I fucking dress.
yeah, but you're not in a wrestling ring. Yeah, I see what I see what you mean, I suppose.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
we've
dress with
all
the
got our
jean.
crosses to bear.
I dress with the jean shorts and the hoodies or the t-shirts
I'm
or
wearing
anything.
a hockey jersey right now. I own about
Yeah.
27 baseball jerseys, so we all have our problems. But I was just going to say, right, for most of this movie, I'm totally on board. Like I mentioned, the end sequence, it is quite scrappy. But I think a lot of this movie is scrappy, but I think it gives a charm. Like if you go back and rewatch it, you'll notice a lot of the time the kids talk over each other.
Yeah.
And I think it just makes the dialogue feel real. It means everything feels scrappy. And like you said, when you suddenly have everybody on the pirate ship at the end, it does feel a little bit like they've got a bit too much freedom. It doesn't feel stagey, which is cool. But you've just got people running everywhere, talking over each other. And I think some of the impact is lost. But I don't mind that. The only sequence I really don't think works is the wishing well sequence. So I like the wishing well bit with Troy and the whole Andy, you goonie, and
Goonie.
they
Yeah.
flick the coin back up. But there are two things. One, it's really small scale, which so it doesn't really work on an aesthetic level. And two, you have the whole sequence with Mouth. So you have the Stephen Mouth thing, which is weird. But then Mouth has the whole thing about the coin. He's like, this coin was my dream, my wish, and I'm taking it back. I'm taking it all back. And then he just randomly just dives into the water head first, and he looks like he's just drowning himself. It comes out of nowhere and doesn't go anywhere. It's like, wait, what is this whole my wish thing? There's no suggestion he's living a tough life or anything, but he's just got this one sequence about a coin, and I'm just like, okay, I guess you can take the coin if you want, but am I supposed to give a shit about the sequence? I don't.
It does that it does lead into one of my favorite things of the entire film is
Mhm.
then Mikey's speech. Up there is their
Yeah, that's
time up
cool.
there,
Yeah.
down here, and it's all in the same thing. So it's all the lead up. But that's the thing. One of the things I think that might be an issue with this film is the fact that some things don't go anywhere, or maybe something was cut. There
Mhm.
has to be something about the wish that you think is more of.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't mind it.
why?
It's just it doesn't go in, like you said,
Yeah,
Mikey gets his big speech, but it's been building up towards that. It's like, he's trying to get everyone to like he's the one really dictating and dragging everyone on this adventure. Everyone wants to go back home. And he's like, no. This is our chance to do something amazing. And then he gets his big speech moment. So everyone's suddenly in now. It's like, okay, we're going on this adventure. Totally makes sense. Whereas Mouth's speech is apropos of nothing and doesn't go anywhere afterwards. So it's just a bit
yeah.
odd.
But but that's where I think some things are being cut off. It's like I said, why did the Fratellis kill that guy? We don't know. We don't know
Yeah.
why he killed him. They just shot him. Okay, that's fine. Maybe he was a copper. Maybe there was a hint he was a copper, and I've missed. I don't know. They just shot this dude. The whole Jake being in prison thing is fine, but then
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure there's more to like the plan of the escape and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It seems like things are just cut short and you don't get any extra. And sometimes I'm all right with that most of the time
Mhm.
for the speed of the film, as it were, the
Yeah.
runtime. But sometimes it's I'll just go a bit more and just give me something more. And that mouth thing is definitely one of them. Why
Mhm.
is he so intent on that coin? I'd love it if it did have his name on it or something. Like he wrote his name on the coin before he chucked it in or something, and it randomly found. And I'm not saying that's where it
Mhm.
is, but there's
No,
got
no,
to be
no.
something more to like this is my way. And they're hinting at something that just doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, like I just needed like you say one extra scene where even there's a hint that he has like something tough going on in his life or something along those lines where it's just you're hanging your hat completely on this scene and it just like it doesn't really work for me. There are a
Yeah,
few sequences like that where if we're going to be like really nitpicky, we already mentioned the fact that they kind of fumble, which is kind of charming in its own way, but you can only have so much luck where every time you fall over, you fall through a secret passage or the secret is revealed. It would have been nice if maybe once or twice they figured things out beyond the fact that Andy could just happen to play the piano okay. That was the
it would
only
be
real piece of skill. And it's like, why do you have, it's the one bit of genuine threat and it's followed up immediately by, let's have a water slide, which I love, by the way. It's like, why do we have a water slide? It's like, why not? It's
yeah,
like,
because
it's a kid's
it's a
adventure
kids
film.
adventure film.
Yeah,
You've got to
and
have
it's
a
like,
water slide. But
sorry, Karen.
sorry, you said about genuine threat,
Mm-hmm,
right? Oh, it would be nice to have threat. And this is going a bit dark. If you had to kill a kid, right,
mm-hmm,
to prove the threat,
mm-hmm.
who's going out of that
Data.
group? Who's going? Data, yeah.
Yeah,
Data's
just
falling onto the spikes, is he?
yeah, I think so. I think he does. I think he's maybe in the best position to do something heroic with his gadgets and then die a heroic death. I think he's the most likely. So I would probably not because I dislike Data. I just be clear. I like all of them. I like all
Yeah.
the kids are great. I like the cast is fantastic. I mean, you could maybe kill off Steph, but it would just be
That's
underwhelming because
you just jumped straight onto mine. I'd kill Steph
but
because
what, we don't care though.
Steph is a that's a point. That's the point. You don't need to care. You just need to
Mm-hmm.
show threat. So
Yeah.
of
Oh
all
yeah.
those
Yeah. I
ones,
see what you
yeah.
mean. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're just showing threat. You're just showing that something else. So yeah, Steph goes
Yeah.
because
Steph's got to go. Yeah.
Steph hasn't proven that she's good at anything except moaning.
Yeah. She
So
just
yeah,
moans. That's her.
get rid of
That's her
Steph.
character trait.
Yeah, so Steph's gone. I mean, maybe she proves that I don't know, bobbing for crabs, needs to work or something like that. So
Maybe
she
she
shows now she's just
dies.
drunk. Yeah, a massive crab bobs for her, kind of
Yeah,
thing. Do you
yeah.
know what I
There's
mean?
like a
Just pulls her
booby
under.
trap related around bobbing for crab.
Yeah,
She gets it wrong. It picks off her face. Like she just dies. Anyway, so
yeah.
Steph's dead. I think that is the correct answer. Yeah. So I was going for more meaningful rather than, yeah, to go back to your original question, just to prove threat. Excuse me. Then, yeah, Steph has to go. But I think, like we mentioned earlier, it is an element of dealing with the scale of the movie. And I think a big part of it is the simple fact that they put so much of the budget into the pirate ship, which they didn't tell the kids about. So when
It's
you
clear. It's fucking great.
it's so awesome. So when
Yeah.
the kids see it for the first time, supposedly they kept it a secret from the kids. So when they go down the slide and they see the pirate ship for the first time, that's the first time they've seen it. And
Yeah.
supposedly there was a lot of swearing, so they had to
Well,
tone that down.
that's what
Although,
they said. So they said, sorry to interrupt.
no, it's
They said they wanted genuine reaction,
yeah, yeah.
but then fucking Josh Brolin ruined it apparently because when he turned around, he went, "Holy shit," or something like, "Oh, we can't
Dude,
keep this."
that's
So
what I read though. But
yeah,
there's like a lot of shits in this film. There's like 3 shits in this film.
yeah.
Which is, I was just like, I think one more ship when they're responding to the pirate ship would be more than acceptable. But it is what it is. But the pirate ship is awesome. I was going to ask how you feel about the whole Mikey and One-Eyed Willie sequence. So obviously everything's building up to that.
You know the random sexual tension that he seems to have with a skeleton. That
Called
might be
One-Eyed Willie, no
yeah,
less, which
one-eyed
is
Willie.
which
Yeah,
is strange. But I think it's both simultaneously really cheesy and wonderful because Mikey is an inherently cheesy character. It's like when you grow up, you're like, oh, maybe I'm like the Mikey of my group. And then you watch it and you go like, Mikey's kind of lame in a charming way, but he's lame. And that sequence sums him up and the sense of adventure of this film. He just so clearly wears his heart on his sleeve. And that to the point where it's like everyone else is like, oh, dude, let's just wrap this up. But he's the one who just believes against all odds that this is real. There's going to be this treasure. I'm going to save the day. And then he has his moment with One-Eyed Willie, like this almost like this fated experience with him and One-Eyed Willie. And it's super cheesy, but it feels bang on because Mikey is that kind of character. And I watch it, I'm like, yeah, no, I love this final sequence where they go out of their way to just give him his moment with One-Eyed Willie, and then the kid, they're all just watching in the background. I'm
I
just
get.
like, oh yeah, this scene's fantastic.
No, that is a good scene up until the point where they're all stopped watching,
Mm-hmm.
because all of their character traits then are pointless. You've
Yep.
been building all their character traits up to this, where mouth is mouthy,
Mm-hmm.
so he's got something to say, or they're all just taking the piss off, or they're all just shouting, and all of a sudden they all just stop and just watch. I don't know, Mikey go down this random rabbit hole of talking to like that kid clearly needs psychiatric help at this point. He's talking to a fucking
I
skeleton,
disagree.
and
I
I
understand
just
why everybody would suddenly have a moment of reverence.
oh
Like,
yeah, but it's the same with you and fucking ET. We're all gonna have this 20-minute goodbye to the end of fucking ET going off in the screen. Like you're looking for moments that don't need moments, in my
I think
opinion.
it totally needs a moment.
No,
You've
it
gone on the
doesn't.
suspension. They all know the only reason they're there is because Mikey's dragged them over the finish line. He's having his like, oh my God, like, dude, One-Eyed Willie is here. The pirate ship is here. It's exactly what Mikey said. Let Mikey have his moments. I think you are
No.
cold of heart, sir, as always, like the end of ET, which is truly magical. I'm
Oh,
like,
it's
you
not
can't
though, is
take a
it?
moment to be quiet where the boy says goodbye to his magical alien friend. You're like, just tell him to fuck off. It's like, dude, you're ruining the moment.
Because it's not a moment. It's
It's
fucking
it's
20. It's 20
honestly like
minutes. You're there looking at your fucking watch going, shit, all right, fuck
it's
off now.
not if saying goodbye to your, let's repeat this again, alien friend, or finally finding again, let's repeat this, pirate treasure on a pirate ship isn't a moment. I'm like, what the fuck is a moment?
Again, in both of those situations, they're being chased.
Yeah, no,
They're
I'll
being
give you that.
chased by the
I'll give you
feds
that.
and
I'll
they're
give you that.
being chased by the Fratellis. So, what do you want to do in this moment? Stop. Let's just stop and have a chat. Let's just chat to the random dead guy. Let's not get all this shit out of you, get the authorities, and then come back and chat to the dead guy. No, we'll
Yeah,
do
no,
it
no, no.
now.
I no, I absolutely take your point. I think on a thematic level, from a purely movie perspective, I love the fact that the character has his moment. But when you think of it as you have here on a practical level, yes, you get the alien onto the ship, you steal the gold, you get the fuck out of here because the Fratellis, as we've already proven, are not here to fuck about. They're here to shoot you in the face. So yeah, you think they'd be a little keener just by let's just grab what we can and get the fuck out of here before the Fratellis show up. And the Fratellis totally get the drop on them. You're absolutely right. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
Why?
give you
Two things as well before we move on. The first question is, why are they not allowed to call it treasure? Why is it always rich stuff?
yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just one of
It,
those kid things, like I think that you just call things certain things amongst your friends, and it
yeah,
just
but we
kind of
always called
catches
it
on.
treasure, even if it was just some random
Yeah, but you
fucking
know what
bits
I mean.
reburied.
Everyone, with you and your friends, you might have one silly thing you call something. It's pretty contrived to be honest, and I don't really get on with it. Rich stuff. I think it actually sounds kind of lame. So I have
Yeah.
no idea is the answer, but I don't think anyone does.
And my final thing before we move on
Mhm.
is everything stops to a standstill. You got fucking Troy and his dad trying to get Mr. Walsh to sign this contract, and it's taking him again
Which is
45
cold-blooded.
minutes.
I mean, he's already proved he's a dick, but
Yeah,
you got to remember, all these parents, they're like, our kids are missing. They've been terrified all day. And the moment they're like, oh, thank God, our kids are alive, he just rolls up on the beach. He's just like, oh, this is the time to get the signature. I'm like, dude,
yeah.
you're a fucking asshole.
But Mikey's worried that they didn't get any money. Like I had it in my hands, Dad, and we let it
Mhm.
slip away. It's not like maybe somebody should get in a speedboat and just go and catch that fucking ship that's literally by there that has all the treasure in it,
Which
all the rich
brings
stuff.
me to
It's by there. It's there.
one of my favorite moments. I love it when a character actor who has one scene or one line just comes in and just steals a scene. So you get the news anchor, he's like, ladies and gentlemen, we're at Kelvin Point and what appears to be a parrot ship. And it's just the way he delivers the line is
Yeah.
so fucking memorable. He's just in there for one scene. He's just like, dude, I'm gonna fucking deliver this line. And it's like the last line of the film. And he absolutely slays it. I just love it. This guy, he's just like, I've got one line in this random movie in 1985, The Goonies, and he's just going to be remembered forever because he just kills it as the news anchor, as the final line of the film. And the music, I mean, we did mention Cyndi Lauper. So this film's got two things going for it. It's got the soundtrack by Cyndi Lauper and the aforementioned. If you haven't watched it, in case we forget to mention it later, you have to watch Goonies Are Good Enough. It's a two-part video, and you're like, oh, cool, it's Cindy Crawford and the Goonies. Yes, it is. It's also most of the WWF in 1985, a real who's who of like guys you've forgotten. So it is Roddy Piper, but it's like Lou Albano and a bunch of other like, what's his name? The Russian dude. He was there. Because
Yeah.
they were all in like Hulk Hogan's rock and wrestling cartoon back in like the mid 80s. It's one of the strangest music videos of all time, but it also happens to be one of the great movie songs of all time. The song's a belter. It's an absolute belter. And it's twinned with Dave Grusin's absolutely fantastic score for this movie, which has gone under the radar with our conversation a bit. This is a guy, he's done like Bonfire of the Vanities, The Firm. He did Ishtar, that famous flop. But you look through his, nothing jumps out like the Goonies. And it's just one of those scores. As soon as you hear it, but it's like, to me, it's like the sound of adventure, but for kids. In the same way, as soon as you hear Indiana Jones's theme, like that's the sound of adventure. The Goonies, there's the sound of adventure for kids. And I was actually thinking, it's like, when I think of adventuring as a kid, I think of the Goonies, but is it a chicken and egg thing? Was the idea of going out on your bikes, finding pirate treasure, was that always something kids wanted to do? Or is it a chicken and egg thing
No,
that it was established by the Goonies and then it's just become the de facto kids' adventure since then?
No, I think it's imagination, and like it was a thing those kids always did, but you put it on screen.
Yeah, I
So
think it probably was. Yeah.
Right,
But I think it's kind of solidified. Anyway.
I need to go back, sorry, because once again, you didn't give me a chance to rebuttal something. You went straight into another fucking topic.
Listen, I've got a lot of great facts. You know what? What can I do? What can I do?
You were talking about like a guy that's, and this means fuck all now because it was 27 minutes ago. But you said about character actor who does something like that guy with the pirate ship.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I
the
wanted
news
to
anchor,
say, yeah, I wanted to say it just reminds me straight away of Hard Target with Wilford Brimley as Uncle Duvet. Because whatever that guy fucking says is pure gold.
That is different. I mean, now at this point, we're just trying to bring up Hard Target because we love that film. And again, if you get a chance, go back and listen to our podcast. It's slightly different with Wilford Brimley because he steals the second half of that
It's the same
film.
thing. Like anything he says is
it is gold. But that's slightly different because he is a proper actor and he has like 4 or 5 major scenes in that film. This is just one random, and I apologize because I didn't check up on the actor. Maybe he has been in other films, but he just has one line and just comes out of nowhere. Like he might not have done anything else as far as I know. I know Wilford Brimley was in a whole bunch of things, but he does, make no mistake, he totally steals the second half. He just comes out of nowhere with that fucking accent. Man, we're talking about the Goonies, and I'm like, I might watch Hard Target again. Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's move on. So, favorite scene. For me, it's actually, to bring it back to the soundtrack and the score, actually, it's after they tie up Brand, which doesn't make any sense. You should be able to get out of that. But they get on their bikes and Cyndi Lauper is playing. But as the kind of adventure begins, so as they're cycling down the hill, that Dave Grusin score kicks in. And I just think that whole scene or that sequence perfectly encapsulates the tone of the movie. It's fun, it's warm-hearted, but there's that bit of edge and genuine danger, and that comes in with the score. It's like they're running off on their bikes, you've got Cyndi Lauper playing, like, this is so much fun. And then as they're cycling down the hill, and you're like, oh no, we're doing this, the score kicks in. As you notice, when the score kicks in at that point, it's the darker side of the score. It's like quite kind of foreboding, like, oh, they're going to do this, and things are going to get quite dangerous. Absolutely love that sequence. And of course, part of it is just you're suddenly on your bikes, you're in the Goondocks in Astoria, like to my mind, and of course it's grown up with this film. When I think of like the Pacific Northwest of the United States, I still think of Astoria. I still think of the Goondocks, and it just looks like this picture perfect version of Americana from the 80s. So that's my favorite sequence in the film.
I will mention my favorite sequence, but before I do, I'd be missed if I didn't fucking mention Data's father.
Mm-hmm.
Data's father, played by Michael Paul Chen, who I just went really dark then all of a sudden, sorry. Uh, Played by Michael Paul Chen, who was Mr. Lee in Falling Down, the convenience store owner, like
That's a
getting the
great
shit
shout.
kicked out of him. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have never put those two together, but as soon as you said it, I'm like, yeah, it's the same fucking dude.
For me, my favorite scene is their time up there, their time up there, our time down here, our time down here. Proves that again, people will gravitate towards Mike, even the
Mm-hmm.
older kids. Like
Mm-hmm.
even the older kids are like, you know what, this kid's onto something. It's
Yeah.
really like yeah, we follow, and maybe that's why we're gonna let him, I don't know, fucking uh, sex talk to a fucking skeleton at the end, but it's fine. But like, I'm on board for it, like for Mikey's speech, and I would probably have followed him then right into the depths of fucking
Yeah, well,
One-Eyed
I'd like the
Willie's
speech. It's just
weird cave.
it's a shame that it comes around. I don't like everything else about that scene, but I do love the speech, so I'll give you that. In terms of loves and hates, so for
Keep
me,
talking. I'm just going to turn my light on because otherwise you're not going to see me.
yeah, no worries, man. So
Yeah,
my loves, just the whole cast, but especially the perfect cast. You know, the four main kids, so Chunk, Mikey, Data, and Mouth. And not just the casting of them, but just letting them be kids. As I mentioned, it does get a bit scrappy sometimes, especially the final act of this film, but it never feels too stagey. And I think it's, benefits hugely for that. Number two, the wonderful tone. As I mentioned with my favorite scene, that combination of warm-hearted fun and genuine danger and, actual jeopardy, which is established right from the get-go with the Fratellis. And number three, the settings. The Goondocks in Astoria is so iconic. Because I literally just mentioned the fact that when I think of the Pacific Northwest, I think of Astoria, and when there's a reason that to this day it's still a big deal when that fucking house goes up for sale. Everyone
yeah,
remembers the house, and the way they shoot it, where it's always the side of the house, and you can see the hill coming down from the mountains. It just looks like a lovely place to live, and I think that's an important part of the film because you have to it wouldn't work if they lived in like a lap of luxury. But you can see why the kids all would want to live there. Like there could be adventure around every corner. The woods are right there. The water's
yeah.
just around the corner. So yeah, I think it's not just aesthetically a pleasing place, but also it kind of marries itself to the sense of adventure that the movie needs and to the fact that the kids clearly want to live there, which runs contrary to most films, as I said, when most kids are like, oh, I can't wait to get out of this fucking bullshit town. And as a grown-up, you're looking like, fucking hell, the houses in this place look unbelievable. So
Yeah.
yeah, big fan of the location.
Right. So my loves are same as you. The core cast. I think they're great. They're proof that child actors can work. Sometimes you get bad child actors.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That it's so
Yeah.
important. It's like you take it for granted in movies like this, like the aforementioned Stand By Me, even Monster Squad to a certain extent. If you get the kid casting wrong and you only need to fuck up one of them, it can
Yeah.
derail the entire movie.
Sandlot kids, definitely. Fucking
Oh,
that.
dude,
Yeah.
yeah,
Honestly,
absolutely
mate,
wrong, but it's fine.
terrible, terrible, terrible kid actors. But
A
uh,
wonderful film. Just for a bit of balance here, Sandlot Kids is a wonderful movie, but it's fine. Not for everyone, apparently.
the adventure thing,
Mhm.
for me, like it is like what you dream to do, what you even pretended to do. We would we would skip over the stream where we grew up, like it was a fucking river, and go to the unused building site and have adventures on there and things like that. And it just that sense of adventure was always like so. Seeing that
Well,
on
it
screen,
starts
absolutely
low key as
fantastic for
well.
me.
It's like
Yeah,
the dream of like suddenly going to one of your friends' house and finding out that they have an attic filled with fucking like amazing artifacts and stuff. Instead, it's like when I was growing up, we found one of our friends, like we found his dad's porno collection, which was
yeah.
quite exciting back in like 1992 because it wasn't the same as now. It was like finding a porn mag was a big deal. Not quite the same as this, a very different movie, but there was that sense of, oh, look, we found something new and exciting. I would have preferred a treasure map, but we found the porn. It is what it is.
Hey,
But yeah, I think
some would argue that was a treasure map.
maybe it was the treasure we didn't realize we were looking for. But yeah, I like you said, it starts off relatable. I think the fact that it starts low key and builds, it gives that sense of like, oh, you can imagine it almost happening. And I think that's a big part of the reason this movie works so well and why it stood the test of time.
I gotta say, mate, the look of and obviously we know it's a sound stage and everything,
Mhm.
but the look of the cave that the ship is in and the ship itself,
It's
it's
great.
fucking beautiful. The water is crystal clear, which is
Mhm.
weird considering it's leading out into the ocean, but still okay. That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm all about the aesthetics, so I'm on
yeah,
board. Yeah,
it looks stunning. It's
and
such a fitting end to that entire journey. It's just
mhm.
that's where you want to end up. To be fair, and
It's such a magical, almost as if it's worthy of a moment, perhaps just one moment, maybe a little speech. I don't know, but anyway. But the fact is, and
yeah,
we've gone
but
back
not
and
while you're
forth on
being
the whole.
fucking chased
No,
by
no, sorry, I'm
actual.
not.
No, 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 no,
No,
not while you're being
I've
chased by
already agreed with you.
actual killers.
Yeah, no,
Actual killers.
I think we can both be right in this instance. I genuinely think I'm willing to kind of say the moment is worthy of a moment, but also maybe don't have a moment when the fatalities are still on your tail. I totally
Yeah,
understand it. But the fact that it does go practical, we mentioned, the scale of the movie is occasionally surprisingly small when you go back and rewatching it. And you're like, well, a bit of CG would fix that. But it also means that this movie is aged like a fine wine. And a big part of that is the fact that he had a giant fuck off fucking pirate ship in the film, and they're on the pirate ship, and there's that tangible sense of like, oh, it's a pirate ship. This is great, rather than it being CG, because it's just not the same. It just isn't. So yeah, it is. I'm glad that at least when we talk about scale, they went big for that final sequence at least.
yeah. Hate. That was my three.
Hates the economics of the movie, as I said, while thematically interesting, remain absolutely mental. Two, despite the fact that I do love Mikey's work, down here, all that speech, the wishing well scene is both cheesy and kind of odd. Other than that sequence, which, as I said, I support you. It's a great speech. And three, which takes us to the odd relationship between Mouth and Steph, which I never understood. And I'm going to stick in a fourth one. Chunk making an executive decision to take in a massively deformed, mentally challenged giant without running it past his parents. It's fucking insane. So I've added that as number four. That should have been number one. Chunk, who is so
You're,
charming, so likable for the whole film. Just as a grown up now, I'm like, imagine if he was your kid. You're just like, dude, I'm gonna have to have a talk. Dude, we're not taking in the deformed giant.
yeah.
He's not living with us. You can fucking forget about it. We brought you a
Uh,
pizza to the beach. How good parents do we need to be? He's not coming home with us. Forget about it.
have you not read of Mice and Men? You're okay making that fourth because it was my number one.
No, it's fair enough. It's fair enough.
You're fine. Chunk bringing that dude. Chunk bringing Sloth in off the street. Like you've known the dude for 3 hours. It's almost as bad as Chili's last week on Robot Jocks doing all that for a woman he met twice. Like,
Yeah, this is worse. This is much worse than
oh, this is
Achilles and
much worse.
Robot
Yeah,
Jocks.
because
Yeah,
yeah,
much worse.
this is fucking
And he
forever.
doesn't get a free pass because he's a kid. It's like the parents should have nipped that in the bud straight away. Go, no, 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 no. He won't be living with us. He's going to go to jail with his mother and his two brothers. He's going to have to do some time, sadly, spend quite a bit of time in court. And the services will deal with him afterwards. He's not living with us. Just be clear, he's not coming home with us. It's not happening.
Number two, well, hang on, I lost it. Number two is Troy. Troy's a dick. Troy
You
nearly
hardly
fucking
mentioned
killed.
Troy.
Yeah, Troy nearly
Brand.
killed Brand.
Yeah,
Like
I
literally
was like,
nearly
is he
kills him.
trying? I was like, at that point, is he trying to kill him? So he grabs onto his hand. He's on the little girl's bike. You're like, all right, it's the 80s. It's being a bit dangerous. But then he sends him what appears to be off the side of a fucking cliff. He is like, dude, you're trying to kill Brand. It's amazing that he survived. Troy he's not just an asshole. He attempts to murder Brand for sure.
Whose bike is he on as well?
The little girls.
Yeah. What little girl is that? Because
I
it's
don't know.
fucking it's Data's sister.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, he just stole the bike from Data's sister.
Well, maybe he had it coming to him. Who knows? But no, Troy is a dick.
Yeah. And third, nobody went for the ship. Like everyone's worried about losing the treasure. The ship is there. It's fucking there. It
Well, that's the
hasn't gonna
interesting
stop having a
thing.
moment with it. Go and get the treasure or the rich
I,
stuff or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Go and get it.
I understand in that moment. I think you're underestimating just how far that ship is away if you watch it. However, I would love to see a follow up to this movie if they had shot it and just been like, what happens the next day? Because he was like, one, there's just a pirate ship on the open water, and two, if they're just like, no, it's a treasure ship, sorry, a pirate ship filled with treasure. I'm like, what happens then? Where does the money go? I don't know how it's dealt with.
I
The
don't
legal
get.
consequences of the yin yang. All of a sudden, they're like, wait, those jewels which Mr. Mikey is using to pay off his house. Wait, that came off the pirate ship. I think there are going to be legal ramifications up the yin yang, to say the least. So maybe
Yeah.
the country club is still on. Who knows?
I don't care how far away that is. You can see it. You can get to it. I'm sorry. It
Dude,
can
it's already
happen.
moving away.
No,
You're
fuck
going to
off.
be the guy who just starts swimming the fuck out to a pirate ship,
Right.
drowns a quarter of the way there.
Once again, it's because these pricks decided to have a moment. To stop and have a moment and
Okay,
say
right.
goodbye to one-eyed Willie shit. Fucking stop
What is
having
your
your fucking
what is your
moments.
plan? Like honestly, like I don't understand it. That pirate ship is it's a few miles out by the time they
Okay,
know what's going
so
on.
the sheriff is there. You're telling me the sheriff doesn't have access to the Coast Guard?
Yeah, like straight away. Like I think everyone's just
Yes,
in awe.
straight away. If you turn around and say there's a pirate ship there with
Well, yeah,
treasure on
but
it, get the
what do you,
Coast Guard
yeah,
out.
but again, what do you do? Like you're the police. You're like, oh, I'm gonna get the Coast Guard. They're gonna jump on that pirate ship, steal the treasure, which this random kid says is on there, and what? Just keep the treasure? I don't think you're really thinking beyond
I'm no,
get to the ship.
I'm clearly thinking because even it's a fucking ship that came out of nowhere. You need to investigate. You can't just let it sail off into the ocean. But we're all gonna stop and have our moment. We're just gonna do we love a fucking moment?
You hate a moment.
I fucking hate a
I
moment.
feel like a moment of awe as you see just a random pirate ship off the west coast of the United States. It's like, well, that is weird, and you're already in the background calling up the lifeguard. Just get to that pirate ship. What do I do when I get there? We'll decide that when we get there. Just make sure
Yes,
you're first on the
exactly.
scene.
Just get there. Let's
Well,
fucking
once
get
again,
there.
sir, out of your fucking mind. But I love your commitment to the bit. You're like, I'm getting out there. I'm going to make something happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to fucking be there. You better
Oh,
believe
it's
that shit.
better than just fucking stopping and staring, and then Chunk is looking at all these people thinking, "Here's my next victims." But anyway,
Oh my
not Chunk,
god! You
Sloth.
always gotta go dark. Always gotta
I
go
gotta
dark.
go dark. But hang
Anyway,
on, sorry, I want to sneak in a fourth. I gotta
oh,
sneak in a fourth.
sorry, my apologies.
No explanation to Mary Ellen Trainor's cast.
That's weird.
Just
That's weird.
no explanation. It's odd. Like, why is
It's
she in the
it's
cast?
it's strange that I never really. I don't know why, because now you say it, I'm like, yeah, she is in a cast and it's not explained, but for some odd reason, it just never kind of clicked in my brain as a thing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. In terms of alternative titles, are there alternative titles to this film, or is it just called The Goonies Everywhere? But what does The Goonies even mean?
I wish it was called The Goonies everywhere because there's a couple of odd ones in this, and I'm not too sure if it's translation error.
Well, they're usually quite fun, so let's see what
Yeah.
we got.
All right. So Bulgaria, the Little Devils.
Nah, it's too twee.
Yeah. Czech Republic, Rascals.
Again, you can. There are the Rascals, aren't they? So that's like a different thing. There's the Goonies, and then there's the
The
Little
Little
Rascals.
Rascals. Yeah, yeah. Estonia, Thunderstorms.
No, that didn't work.
No. Oh, you think that didn't work?
Mhm.
Finland, Sore Feet.
Sore feet.
Yeah.
So what would that even be in relation to? I mean, this film does go out of its way to show off Nike trainers quite regularly. It is just one of those things like, dude, look, they're wearing Nikes. Like, all right, cool. And some of the trainers in this film are actually pretty dope, but that doesn't give them sore feet. So yeah, I don't know what they're getting at there.
Greece, Goonies, The Hunt for Great Adventure.
That's okay.
We're
Long-winded,
not
but
hunting for
like that.
treasure. We're just going to hunt for a great adventure.
It kind of is almost. It's just that sense of like it almost doesn't matter as long as we're going on an adventure. Although the whole financial impact of this film does give it purpose, I suppose. So
Hungary, Treasure Hunters.
no, no, sounds
I'm
too much like a
saving.
Nicolas Cage movie.
I'm saving India for last. Kazakhstan, Apes.
What?
Apes.
Apes.
Yeah.
Apes. Okay, okay. I don't know what to say to that. Apes. Apes. It is
Well,
then.
you mentioned monkeys in this episode already, so I mean, it kind of fits.
Oh, sure, sure.
Yeah.
It's tenuous at best, but I'll give it to you.
Well, all right, Norway, the Skull Gang.
Yeah, yeah. It's a bit better. I can imagine if they called themselves the Skull Gang, that would work. They don't, so it doesn't. But hey ho.
India, right? I could give you a million guesses, right?
Mhm.
I could offer you all the money that I have. I would sell my house to
All
give
the
you.
rupees in Delhi to
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
this to guess this
I would
title.
sell my house and give you everything if you could guess, and you would never get it.
All right, go for it.
Guinness.
Guinness. Yeah, I think
Guinness.
your rupees and your house are safe. I don't think anyone's
Yeah.
guessing. That's got to be
No,
a.
that
It
is a
should be Guinness, yeah.
translation error, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got to be
Guinness.
Guinness.
I mean, Jesus, I do actually quite fancy a pint of Guinness now, but that's besides the point. It's got nothing to do with this film. So
Yeah.
yeah, as far as alternate titles goes, those are some of the strangest ones we've ever come across. Do you have any facts? I know there's bound to be a bunch of facts beyond the aforementioned giant octopus, which is referenced again. Everyone knows this, but it's referenced at the end of the movie by Data.
Yeah.
And when we were growing up, we were just like, is Data just randomly lying? Of course, there was a giant octopus sequence, but it got cut from the movie. But Data's line didn't, bizarrely.
So, according to Sean Austin, he was allowed to keep the treasure map used in the film. Several years later, his mother, Patty Duke, discovered it, thought it was just a crinkled piece of paper, and threw it in the bin.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
That's like someone's mum who like just randomly threw out all of their box Star Wars toys in like 1983. Just, oh, this is junk. I'm going to give this all to charity. It's like, oh my God, man. You threw away thousands, you stupid bitch.
When rocks are falling from the cave ceiling, Data screams, "Holy SHIT." Keiji Kwan said he spelt the expletive because his mother made him promise not to use any bad language in the film.
Ah, it's very charming. Very charming.
It's around the 46-minute mark when the Fratelli brothers argued, and Ramsey really slapped Robert DeVee. She was told to hit him as hard as she could. She would have fucking took his head off.
She gave him a wow. Actually, the one thing that always jumps at me in this film, and I did for the opening quote the whole I remember we were going to get your teeth fixed, but you know, we spent the money on Francis Toupee. Sloth then knocks their heads together, and I don't know what sound effect that they use, but it sounds like major damage. It sounds horrible. Like, I'm not sure if you've, whether you're playing football or other sports and stuff, there is a unique sound, and it is horrible when two heads collide. It's fucking horrendous. And they have captured that. My God, that is serious concussion. It just makes my toes curl every time I hear it. But of course, they hop up. They're fine. So, no need to worry.
Cyndi Lauper co-wrote the theme song "Goonies Are Good Enough" and shot a music video that features a cameo by the film's executive producer Steven Spielberg. The 12-minute video basically tells the movie story as a musical. Cyndi Lauper plays Cindy, a new Goonie recruit. Bangles play Pirate, and Andre Rene Roussimoff plays Sloth. The child actors from the movie also appear in it.
It's a two-part video, so she has to she goes out and like, I don't know, she works with the wrestlers or something. I haven't seen it for a while, but it's a two-part music video, and it's all crazy, but it's wonderful.
The real-life banter between Joey Pants and Robert DeVee during their joint audition won them the roles for the movie.
Awesome. Well, yeah, they've got great chemistry. Fantastic. All three of them has like legitimately fantastic chemistry. You buy them as much, even though, like you say, like, how many different lovers does she have? They all look like they come from different families. You totally buy them as a family unit, though. It's great.
The name Rube G can be seen painted on the contraption that opens the yard gate for Chunk near the beginning of the movie. Obviously, reference to Rube Goldberg. I didn't see the Rube G thing, so.
Or me. That's cool.
No uncut version has been released on home media, but when basic cable or local stations air the film, the version used includes the stop and shop and giant octopus sequences cut from the final version.
That's crazy.
So there are sequences out there that have the. What's the stop and shop sequence?
I don't know. I've never seen them. It's like I had never seen the really dark version of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom until I watched it on Disney Plus, and I didn't know it was that version. But the bit like it's much darker. The whole like Gallimard thing when he takes the heart, like you see the heart, you're like, holy shit, where the fuck did this come from? It was much darker, and I didn't know that there was that version of the movie. And I'm watching it when I was like 40 years old for this podcast, and I was like, wait, what are all these extra scenes? This is insane. But it's amazing that those scenes are out there and just randomly showing them on cable. I don't know if they're on like the 4K or anything, but I'm gonna have to watch them one way or another.
I've looked at because there's a bunch of alternate versions of it. So to receive a PG certificate, the UK cinema version was cut by 16 seconds, with edits to close up of Jake's hanged face and shots of him untying the noose. 2 uses of shit said by Chunk in the first 20 minutes, and the replacement of subtitled uses of marijuana, cocaine, and speed, heroin, and sexual torture devices with less offensive words.
Yeah, dude, seriously, when I was rewatching this, I was like, the opening kind of shocked me a lot. I was like, are they really going for it with the whole like fake suicide thing? And I really noticed the swearing. And when Mouth is talking to Rosalita, I was like, was there always this additional detail? I was like, this is some pretty grown-up stuff. And I think it was just like growing up, I didn't see those sequences. And I think maybe seeing it on Netflix now, these like maybe the first time or maybe the second time, I don't know. But watching it for the podcast, I was just like, I can't remember these sequences going this hard. Or certainly the fact that it appears Chunk swears like 3 times in the movie. But Yeah, I think it is just the extended version. So I think growing up, I was probably watching the more PG version of this film.
Okay, so the two aside from the octopus, there's two more deleted scenes. One
Mhm.
is a second stop at the snack shack, the drugstore. So they stop at it twice. And the second is the Goonies Oath. The Goonies Oath is after the group finds themselves in the wishing well, immediately after Andy says, I'm not a Goonie. She is sworn in and then sends Troy's jacket up on the bucket. Footage of this is so far hasn't been shown on TV nor in any DVD version, but pictures of this scene are printed in the Goonies official souvenir magazine.
See, I think that makes sense because in the movie, it is, and I didn't mention earlier, but it is actually quite jarring when Troy throws down the coin and then they send up her coat, like her
Yeah.
jacket. And you're just like, it's odd that, this kind of iconography. It's like, I don't know why this feels like a bigger deal than it should be. And it's because there is obviously this extra scene. But it's kind of like, removing the Gucci scene out of Stand By Me. It'd just be bizarre.
Yeah. Right. So I found it now. So in a version broadcast on US cable channel HBO, several scenes were cut. These were back for the Disney Channel version. However, they include right after the Goonies leave the house on their bikes, they stop by a drugstore where Mikey locates a map, and that's how he finds out where to go to find the rock formation. Chunk also licks ice cream quarts in the freezer, and Troy shows up and sets fire to One Eyed Willie's map. An octopus that attacks Steph. Data shoves a Walkman into its mouth and it lets go and swims away dancing. After the Goonies get near the restaurant, but before Steph and Andy join up, there was a scene in which Data uses some of his cool gadgets. They, of course, backfire. I'd
I'm
quite
gonna
like
have
to
to
see
see all
those.
these.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch these. I feel like I
yeah.
should have done more research. Never mind. But that's the thing. I tend not to go overboard because I want these facts to feel like I'm reading them, hearing them for the first time when you deliver them. So yeah, bit of homework to do after this movie. Should we move on to Hug to the Future?
Yeah, unless you want me to go through 4,000 more fucking
I
facts.
think we can call it a day there. So this is where we ask the question: remake, sequel, let it die, or leave well alone. The obvious answer is leave well alone. No sequel, thank you very much. Richard Donner has sadly passed on. The kids have grown up. This film, like if there was going to be a sequel, it needed to be made in like 1987. I mean, you can make an argument if Spielberg was involved, maybe that would be a sign of quality, that they would have something special and maybe a reason to make the sequel. But it's like, dude. The Goonies doesn't need a sequel. Just leave well the fuck alone, as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. Just leave it alone. We really, really don't need a sequel or a remake or anything like that.
No,
It's
I don't want to see like a new bunch of kids and they kind of force in Mikey and all these as like 50 something year olds. I'm like, I don't want to see that shit,
Oh, do
man.
you know what I did? Because I said remake or sequel. We don't need the fucking ever popular legacy sequel. I don't need
No, no.
Mikey's kids
That's what I
and
mean. Yeah, yeah.
Mouth's kids and everything. I don't need
Because
any of
you
this
know
shit
that
anymore. I
that's
just need,
exactly what it'd be. If they made a
yeah,
sequel, I would 100% it'd be a legacy sequel. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it.
yeah.
It wouldn't be the same.
Although, if the sequel was set the next day and they went to find the pirate ship, I'm all right with that.
The only way you do and it's going to lead us into one of our sections in a minute. The only way to do it is to do a video game. It's like the new Indiana Jones video game. That's how you make a new Indiana Jones film. You don't have to make him 80 years old. It's set, a year after Raiders of the Lost Ark. You've got a great voice cast, amazing production values, and you're like, oh yeah, this feels like a proper Indiana Jones story and made around the time when you want to see Indiana Jones, i.e. the mid to late 30s. And it's the same with the Goonies. If you could get them back and you did like a proper big budget video game, sure, we'll do the Goonies 2, although there has already been a Goonies 2 in video game form. We'll get to that in a second. But as for movies, fucking forget about it. I don't want to see any remake, any retelling, nothing. Leave well alone. It's aged wonderfully. It belongs in the 80s. Stay put. We all agree, Jess.
Totally agree. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. So this make a change. So if you could only make one change to make this movie better, for me, it's Stephen Mouth. I mentioned the fact that I think the finale is a little bit scrappy. You could potentially tighten that up. Maybe add the giant octopus scene. But the Stephen Mouse thing is always the thing that jumps out to me in this film. I don't get it. I don't know what they're going for, and I could probably do without it.
Trap or two more. Just something more than
Yeah.
it feels like 30 seconds. They're 30 seconds away from finding the pirate ship. Just give me some, and maybe just add a bit more touch of danger. Because although as kids in this adventure, you'd never feel
Mhm.
like they're in trouble or in danger. Even with the Fratellis chasing them, for some reason, I just don't feel like they're actually about to die at any point. So,
See, I think the level of danger is absolutely fine. I actually quite like it, but I agree with you that the movie could definitely do with one or two more booby traps.
yeah.
100%. Yeah, I think you're right. In terms of video games, so yes, famously, there was a Goonies 2 for the NES in 1987. As you mentioned, if there was ever going to be a sequel, it should have been made when the NES sequel came out. It was made by Konami. It was absolutely fine. There was actually a lesser-known Famicom original Goonies game that was only released to retail in Japan, but made an appearance on the arcade-based Nintendo Versus system in the US, the lesser-played version. But yeah, there was actually, everyone remembers the Goonies 2, which was a bold move to make a video game called The Goonies 2, considering there is no Goonies 2. But there was an original Goonies game made for the Nintendo Versus system in the US, and as I said, for the Famicom in Japan. If you're going to make one today, it's just got to be something that captures the essence of childhood, akin to recently there was a game called Knights and Bikes. It's kind of like if the Goonies was set in Cornwall. That's definitely going for a Goonies vibe. Or I'd go for like the gentle exploration and action of something like Little Gator Game by Platonic Games. I know that sounds weird, but I like the idea of it almost being smaller scale, just in the Goondogs, don't have to go bigger. And it's like you said, there's a hint of danger, but it's never serious. And it's really more about exploration and spending time with your friends. So that's what I'd go for. I don't need the big Naughty Dog version of this. I prefer like a smaller independent kind of game, mid-budget game where it's just, oh yeah, but they're just kind of like cutting about the Goondocks looking for pirate treasure. That's fine.
I love how you threw that in because you knew what my answer was going to be. You're like, I got to put this out there before he says it. I don't want fucking Naughty Dog. Shut up.
No. Don't get me wrong. If you want to make the Naughty Dog version, I absolutely get it. It's just because I've been playing some of these like mid-range cozy games quite recently where the scale is much smaller and most of it's just about exploration. There's a great game called, it doesn't really work for this, called Little Kitty Big City, where you're just playing this little black cat running around like a tiny version of Tokyo. And there's no real threat. You're just collecting things and fucking about, but it's just really charming. It doesn't outstay its welcome. I'm just like, if you could take the essence of that or Little Gates Game, or there's another one with a little bird, I forgot the name of it. But that same vibe where, you can complete the game in like 2-3 hours. You just collect some stuff. It's a little bit of danger. Move on with your day. That'd be ideal. Or you could go for the 20-hour Naughty Dog version.
The correct answer is Naughty Dog, especially like in the version of like Uncharted 4, where it is hunting for Henry Avery's treasure. So you get the treasure, the pirate ship, and everything like that in the cave and everything. It was like they channeled Goonies for that film. For that game, sorry.
Even that game does a good combination of stuff at home and I even like the fact, like in terms of the scale, even though it's like a massive budget game, it's kind of open world, but there's smaller sections.
Yeah.
So Uncharted 4 is probably more accurate, just with less killing, less mass murder, put it that way.
I don't know. So for me, the correct answer is going to be...
Would you give Chunk a gun and just let him go to work?
It would be Uncharted for Naughty Dog. But if I was going to go smaller your way, I would probably go like Telltale Games or LucasArts to begin with. Monkey Island, where it's a point-and-click adventure. Like
quite charming.
Yeah, I think that would work. But
I think that would work. I just never got on board with point-and-click adventures. It's weird because I'm a big video game guy, but I could never quite, no pun intended, click with them. But that probably is the correct answer, something along those lines. But I don't mind the fact that I said not Naughty Dog. I'm kind of like, I quite like the idea of Naughty Dog now.
Yeah, I don't mind a point and click. So I would go like Monkey Island, but no, it's definitely like an Uncharted 4 kind of rip off for Naughty Dog to do that.
Somewhere between like that and maybe like Grand Theft Auto, where you can like swap between the characters or something. Oh no, because you want them all together. I don't. Anyway, best and worst of IMDb. So I've got to assume that one, this movie has thousands of reviews, and two, that a huge proportion of them are going to be 10s because people fucking love this movie. So I'm going to guess 3,252 reviews.
620.
620?
Yeah.
I thought it'd be more than that.
I thought it'd be more than that, yeah.
Yeah. A high percentage of 10s though, right?
So 620 reviews, and of them, 224 are...
Yeah, that's a high percentage. That might be like the highest percentage we've come across, actually, in terms of 10s.
So, in regards
I'm not going to lie, I am so interested to hear the fucking lunatic who gave Goonies 1 star. The jaded cunt that gave the Goonies 1 star.
So, like I said, we've got a 10-star. So this was written in May 2003, titled Fun, Fun, Fun. But first, you have to do the truffle shuffle. Treasure hunts. Who doesn't remember digging under the porch in creek beds, hollowed out logs, etc., to find the buried treasure you just know is hidden there somewhere? The Goonies is a fun-filled ride right back into our youth, where treasure hunts are no longer a thing of the past. I absolutely loved this movie. It was just so much fun to watch when I was a kid, and just as much fun when I watched it again as an adult with my own kids. Of course, the movie has moments of predictability, and no, the villains aren't all that intimidating. They're actually quite moronic, but that only adds to the charm of this movie as well as its comedic value. Although there are lessons peppered in, don't judge by appearances, right versus wrong, etc. Overall, The Goonies is a wonderful exploration of childhood friendships and imaginations. From Data and his many scientific creations to One Eyed Willie and his pirate ship. There isn't a character in this movie I didn't fully enjoy watching. You have the dim-witted evil Fratellis, heavy-set melodramatic Chunk, Data with his booty traps, that's what I said, booby traps, galore, the odd-looking but lovable Sloth, and Mouth with his, well, mouth. Those are only a few, but there are many more. A lot of great lines come from this movie, along with the memorable moments, the truffle shuffle. I've seen the Goonies over about 100 times, and I still enjoy watching it over and over again. This is absolutely a pure fun-filled movie to enjoy with your kids, grandkids, nieces, and nephews, or simply by yourself. Hang on and enjoy the ride. The Goonies earns a solid 5 out of 5 stars, even though he gave it 10, but still.
Same thing, same
It
thing.
leads me to something we mentioned last week about seeing if my kid will watch it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Did
Yeah,
you try it?
I showed him the trailer,
Hmm.
and he went, "No, thank you, Dad. That's not for me," and walked out of the room. He's
Really?
5. Yes. No, thank you, Dad. That is not for me.
That's yeah, that's it's quite definitive and quite surprising because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I watched this a little later than 5. I
That's
probably
what I'm
watched
gonna
it.
wait. I'll wait another year or two and I'll try it again. He's gonna watch it
That
whether he
that's the
likes it or
thing though,
not.
and I think one of the reasons it works, like, because that is the thing. Yeah, he's 5 and the kids are young, but the kids are between. I think they're playing somewhere around 12, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I think, and I probably watched it. I was younger than that when I watched it for the first time, so I probably would have been like 8 or 9. I would guess the first time I watched the Goonies, and that's probably more the age. I can understand why at 5 it might not be for him, but yeah, he's gonna have to give it a shot at some point. But I suspect he might be more willing, should we say, to take it on when he's like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, so 1 star.
Yeah,
How many
go
one
for it. Go
star?
for it.
How many 1 stars do you reckon?
Out of 600, I'm gonna say like 21.
Oh, dude, 26.
26. And even that's too many, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, 26. Crazy.
Right, so I've again picked up random, so I'm not going back. This is the one I picked up random, but it kind of makes a bit of sense. It
Yeah.
kind of makes a bit of
It was just
yeah. So, like I said, I picked this at random, but it may be right because I mean, the title is "If you are an adult and haven't seen it already, then don't." So he's watched it as an adult, so this might not have the
yeah.
nostalgic value. But I'll go into the review anyway.
It's still an objectively good film, so it's still gonna be bullshit, but sure.
Yeah, I was 18 when this was released, just a little bit too old for it. Over the decades, I've heard people just a few years my junior rave about this as if it were Indiana Jones or a Gremlins or the like. So finally, at the ripe old age of 46, I've had a look. I cannot believe the hype for this. The director's overriding instruction to the actors seems to have been shout and scream and say a dialogue whilst everyone else is saying this. That will keep
Yeah.
the audience thrilled and excited. It gave this member of the audience a headache. The storyline is weak, the character's two-dimensional, and the script is dire. I kept thinking these kids must be off their Ritalin. It was like an onslaught of annoyance. I get that people are nostalgic for movies they saw when they were kids. I still think Jaws is one of the greatest films ever made, whereas people younger than me can't abide the plastic shark. But really, I'm amazed that so many people still seem to rate this. I challenge anyone over 40 in 2013 who hasn't already seen this movie as a kid to like it.
Very harsh. Just be clear, this movie doesn't belong in the same conversation as Raiders Lost Ark. Like, I love the Goonies. Yes, I have a huge amount of nostalgia for it. I think it's an objectively well-made film. His argument about the kids talking over each other, as you mentioned earlier, I actually think is genius because it actually makes them sound and feel like real kids.
Yeah.
It just otherwise, like you see some of these films, the kids feel stagey. They just don't feel like real people. The kids feel like real kids, and a part of that is them just shouting over the top of each other, like you and I do on the podcast all the time. That's how you know we're real friends, you know. But yeah, it's not Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And anyone who tells you otherwise is out of their mind. And I adore this film. I fucking adore this film. It's not a classic on that level. It's a really good kids' adventure film. It's not one of the greatest movies ever made, but it's also not the 1 star nonsense that he is making out. So, no, he's well off the mark. But at the same time, I think he's coming in like, you know, I get it. People love this film. They're like, dude, Goonies is one of the best films ever. It's like, well, it's not really, is it? It's one of the, it's really fun. And it's one of my favorite films growing up, but it's not one of the best movies of all time. But yeah, I think he's gone far too far the other way, to be honest. That was a horrible sentence, but you know what I'm getting at. So that leads to our own ratings and recommendations. As much as I love this film, it is a 4-star film. I think it's always been a 4-star film. It's a really strong 4-star film. But as you mentioned, it has its faults, it has its errors. But would I recommend it? 100% yes. It's so easy to recommend. I'm not telling people. Well, actually, when I was telling the guys in work that I was going to do this for the podcast, two of the guys never watched it, so they're 10 years younger than us. And I can get why maybe it might have passed them by. It really was a big deal with VHSs and renting, and even for us, like on TV, it was still a big deal. Like it didn't feel like an old movie by the time we were watching this in like the late 80s, early 90s. But if you were a kid in like the late 90s, I can imagine this might have already felt a little bit old hat. So even though they haven't seen it, I was just like, dude, you don't need to have nostalgia for this film. I was like, it's on Netflix. If you want to watch it, it's still loads of fun. I was like, don't expect a masterpiece. It's a really well-made film, but it is fundamentally made for kids. But you don't have to be a kid to see it just because of the inherent quality of the film. And the fact that even if you don't necessarily, connect with the kids now, you can connect with the Fratellis or some of the other characters. There's always something for you to connect.
You don't want to connect with the Fratellis. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you can enjoy. No, not connect with them, but you can enjoy them. They're a great
you're basically
so,
saying everything counterintuitive to what the reviewer said about you watching it as an old man.
Yeah. Well, I completely disagree. I think you can watch it as an adult, enjoy it. If you watch it as a kid, it's not like, last week we did Robot Jocks. We can make the argument that it was never good, but we grew up really enjoying that film. But there was always the danger we were going to go back and be like, oh, this film actually isn't very good. And it turns out it's actually not very good. That's not the issue with this film. It was great when we were growing up. It's still really good now. Aesthetically, it's still held up. And if you've got kids, as long as they're older than 5, apparently, there's no reason they shouldn't enjoy it. So it's a 4 stars for me, and it's a really solid yes in terms of recommendations.
Oh, fucking hell, you went on so long now. I forgot I haven't given mine yet. Yeah, same. It's a 4-star, and I would recommend. Pretty much, I'm gonna guess because I kind of turned off pretty much for everything you said.
You're surprisingly harsh and unnecessary, but sure.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's a 4-star film. There are things in here that felt like it needed a bit more, which could have pushed it to a 5, but it's definitely a 4-star film. The nostalgia is high on this one. It was the reason it was one of the first films we picked. It was a reason why it's the name of the podcast. It's absolutely, it's ingrained in my childhood. I absolutely love this film. I still love this film. Whether or not I think I would love it as an adult, I can't separate. I cannot turn around and separate and say, would I love it now? But it has all the trappings of things that I would have enjoyed. So maybe if I still watch it as an adult, then definitely without watching as a child, definitely I probably still would like it. But I can't definitively say yes or no on that.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's impossible for us, because we have such an attachment to this film, to completely remove nostalgia from the equation. And there's no way to watch this completely objectively as adults because we have too much of a connection to this film. I tried as much as possible to look at this objectively as a movie, and I do genuinely think it's an objectively well-made, enjoyable film, but I will always be on I simply can't remove the fact that I remember every line of dialogue for this film. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. And I would recommend it. It's one of those films that I think everyone should watch. Whether or not you haven't seen it before, I don't agree with that review that we read. I still think you should watch it, and whether or not you like it, it's by the by. I think it's a film that needs to be watched. There's a reason there's only 26 1-star views. And I think they're trying to be contrarian. The fact is, if you watch this and you didn't watch it growing up, I'm not saying 100% you're going to love it. But for you to come away and say you hated it, I would be surprised. I really would be surprised. You could be indifferent towards it, sure, but to hate it, there's just too much to like about this film for you to genuinely hate this film, unless you're one of the aforementioned 26 lunatics. It's a reason it's been saved. Like the film has been saved in the National Library or whatever it was in America. So yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. That's all I can say about that, really.
No, it really is. Yeah. So next week, that was the first part of our revisit season. So we've got 3 more, and they're all going to be taken from our first 10 episodes of the Hey Guys podcast, because we were finding our way. The sound quality wasn't as good, blah blah blah. And to be honest, we just want an excuse to rewatch some of our favorite films. So the Goonies was my choice. I mean, we were always good. One of us was always going to choose the Goonies, but sir, this kind of leaves the door open now. There's a whole bunch of movies for you to choose. What are you going for next week?
So I dug through, and this is probably going to be a big hint for you. I dug through the 10 or the 9 remaining, should I say, to see what I was going to find. And then as I'm looking through, I see the poster on my wall, and I thought, well, I got to pick that. The poster's on my wall. So the year is 1986.
86, okay.
And like I said, the poster's on my wall. So if you remember my wall at all, movie posters.
Big Trouble?
Big Trouble in Little China, dude.
It's a great shout. It's a great shout.
Yeah.
And a movie which it's weird because I didn't love this movie growing up. I've really fallen in love with it.
I loved it.
I didn't hate it when I was younger, but I watched it and I was like, it was fine. And then I just didn't go back to it. It wasn't like, other Carpenter movies like The Thing, which I've always loved, and Halloween and stuff. It was like Big Trouble. I watched it and I was like, oh, it's good. I like it. But I just never went back to it. And then I watched it again as an adult. I was like, wait a minute. This movie's a fucking masterpiece. It's so good. But not well. The first half is a masterpiece. The second half is something else. It is something.
And to be fair, like I said, not as warm on the first half. I think the first half is great. I always preferred the second half when it becomes shit. Yeah, and I think we may have said exactly because we're two different people who look at films completely different. But it was constantly on rotation in my house, in my bedroom, like always. I absolutely adored this film.
Too.
Like, yeah, that
no, and you're right. It is one of those movies when I rewatched it and I was just like, why haven't I seen this film like 20 times? It's such a Liam movie. It's ridiculous. Like what it was just like, it can happen. It happens with video games. It happens with all kinds of art, music. You might watch it at just the wrong time under the wrong circumstances, and it just kind of passes you by. You're like, oh, it's fine. And then all of a sudden you go back to it under the right circumstances, like decades later, and you're just like, holy shit. I fucking love this film. Yeah. Why haven't I been watching this forever? It's bizarre because you're like, I have watched this film. It just didn't click, but it is now. So it's just one of those things.
I wonder if my kid will like this film. I wonder if I'm allowed to show my kid this film.
I think that might be a bit of a push for a 5-year-old kid. I don't think this film is egregious, but I think it might. I'm trying to think of when I started watching. Well, basically, all start with Die Hard. So it was like when we finally got a VHS. And went to the video store, and my dad wanted to watch Die Hard. And he's like, maybe I'll try and watch this with my kids and see how they get on with it. And because I was fine with Die Hard, that was it. Floodgates were open. I could rent whatever I wanted. So let's be honest, it escalated quickly. There's a big jump from Die Hard to the body horror of RoboCop and the horror of Alien and stuff like that. But that was the trajectory I took, and I was off to the fucking races. I think I was like maybe 9 years old once the dam broke. I certainly wasn't watching it when I was 5. I'll tell you that much. So
I also think things are a bit different this day and age.
They certainly are. People a little bit more careful about these things. So I would suggest maybe don't show. I think it'd be lost upon him as well, to be honest. I think it's one of those films you probably actually enjoy. The more movies you've seen, the better this movie is.
You know what? It'd be funny, wouldn't it, if he wasn't up for the Goonies and then he sat and watched this entire fucking thing.
That'd be fantastic. That'd be fun. Well, I look forward to hearing what your son makes of it if he does indeed end up
I probably considering it's still a 15, I probably won't show it to him at this point. But
that's probably But anyway, so thank you very much for joining us for 1985's The Goonies. Do join us for our second part of our revisit season as we look back at 1986's Big Trouble in Little China. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, mate, I'm good. I'm good as always.
Cool. Yep. I've been Liam, he's been Rob, and you have been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.